Welcome to the Java Cafe, Java fam.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening, good evening, good evening. Let me just fix a couple of things here. It is definitely Java After Dark. So much so, let me get this stuff together here. All right, there we go. That's much better. Listen, do me a favor. Go ahead and hit that share button. If you're listening on Twitter, I'm going to figure out a way to get that up and pay attention to that. If you're listening on the website, we might be able to go in and see if someone's in the chat. But mainly on Facebook here tonight. This is Java After Dark. So very unfiltered. And that Tygene is real good. And I don't want to be making anyway, this is After Dark. So listen, we are about to bring in my good friend and brother, someone who is definitely is an influence in this space of Boston Poly, being impactful, and engaging and trying to learn how to mobilize people toward change and action that will improve our quality of life. And there's a whole bunch to talk about. And I know y'all are waiting for us to get in to the whole city council debacle that happened earlier today. So without further ado, let's bring in my good friend and brother. Because I did listen. If you follow him on Twitter, we'll put up his contact information as well. You are definitely well aware that brother Carlos is well prepared and ready tonight. So, brother Carlos, come on, sir, and just this is after dark. This ain't Monday through Friday. Take your mute off, brother. We want to hear everything.
Can you hear?
Yep, got you there.
Let me start by saying that was a pretty fancy drink you have there with the rim all laced up. I'm surprised it's not more red than orange, but I'm glad you're in a relaxed mode because I'm hoping people are in a space to absorb what we're sharing with them this evening.
Listen, there's going to be a lot. A matter of fact, when we get into these spaces, we do. But I'll be honest, more brother Carlos to me. Do due diligence in preparation, and so there was some preparation in tonight. We have sort of some things we want to make sure we uncover. The intent of this tonight is to really sort of for me and Carlos, you can say what you're looking to get out of or how you want your contribution to contribute. Yeah, already started. That just to break through a lot of the muck and the mess, in
Mm.
spite of some of the muck and the mess, just really giving a real sort of community, I'll go ahead and say hood perspective around some things. And the advantage we have with Los is Los used to be in it. And so he knows it as a constituent and he knows it as a candidate and he knows it as an elected official. So we're going to get right into the conversation in just a couple of seconds. Any context you want to set, Los?
Oh, I want to make sure. Do I need to make any disclaimers because I'm going to say some things that are probably going to bother some people, and it's probably going to rub them the wrong way, and I don't want them to unfairly attach it to you. So I'll just say right up front that I own all my statements. I will try to separate fact from opinion and be very clear about which one I'm offering when I'm offering it. And then I think all we can really do these days is give people information, and hopefully they'll take the time to discern, study it for themselves, cross-check it, and make sure it works for them. So, anything more than that, I think would be unrealistic.
So, a couple of things. Let's just jump right in. Every year in Boston tends to be an election year. We don't get a break just because of how our municipal falls and the national elections and things like that. So, there are a lot of things that we're going to check in and talk about tonight. There is the governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, and we'll talk about just in general. There's a lot of endorsements, state auditor, treasurer, which doesn't really, I don't think, gets due justice because a lot of people, unless you're in it, they don't pay attention to it.
Right.
And so let's jump right into the gubernatorial. I'll just give my disclaimer that I was with, and Lord, I forgot his last name, but Ben. I can't remember his last name. He was in early on and then popped out.
Downing, Senator Ben Downing.
Yes, Ben Downing. I really enjoyed Ben Downing because I brought him on here and I said, listen, with all these folks, women and women of color that are running for office, why are you as a white man jumping in? He said, because I know how to use my privilege. I was like, okay. So gubernatorial, let's go.
Well, I'm gonna start with another disclaimer. Or I'll say a couple things. I like Ben Downing. He was one of the first people I spoke to when I entered the seat of the state rep in 2011, and I we aligned on a lot of our issues and beliefs. So I've only heard good things about him. With that being said, as we start to talk about politics, I was born. I shouldn't say I was born a Democrat. I was raised to be a Democrat, and while I held office, I identified as a Democrat. Currently, in my what I believe my political maturity is, I don't give a damn about either party. I believe the party politics has become a land of extremes, and what I'm more focused on is what their issues are, whether they align with mine and benefit the community that I grew up in, and the people that live in that community. So, while I was an insider, being able to see it from behind the curtain, I understand the games that people play, and so not every Democrat is necessarily means that's going to help out the black and brown communities that I care about, whether in Boston, whether in Worcester, whether in Springfield, Lowell, New Bedford, where have you. The few places where we can reside in this state. So, with that being said, I'm watching the race, but I don't put high hopes on a governor to do anything. And I'm not saying they won't do anything, but I don't think that they prioritize our communities in a way that's equitable or make sure that they're really working and focusing on the issues that have plagued our communities for 50, 60, 100 years since Reconstruction.
So let me say this. There's this thing of that Maura is the heir apparent. It's just sort of, I was talking to somebody today, and she's just basically, the presumption is she's going to slide in. There's Western Mass. There's what, Darren and I used to call the W towns out toward, Central Mass and on. And Thaddeus got me once. He said, James, there are black folks and folks out there that aren't just all Republicans. So we want to be balanced with that. But do you agree that she's just going to sort of smooth sailing right in?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that in Massachusetts, where we've had a lot of, I mean, Deval Patrick, I think, is an anomaly to some degree, only because of his skin color. I mean, he doesn't necessarily, while he came from a background that's similar to many of ours, when he ran for governor, he was not your average person from our communities. He was a multimillionaire. He had connections to go all the way up to the White House and back down to the ground. And so I'm over that honeymoon phase of thinking, okay, we got our first one and we broke the ceiling. A lot of it is done behind the scenes. It's who has the name recognition. It's very hard for black candidates or Latino candidates to win statewide because once you leave those major metropolitan areas of Boston, Worcester, and Springfield, the majority of Massachusetts demographics are white. The majority of them have a different income, different issues than we have in those urban areas. So, you're usually going to see an heir apparent appear or a front runner. And you saw, Senator Chang Diaz try to get in the race, but without deep pockets and big money and those inside connections, you can't sustain a campaign that can reach out to 351 cities and towns. Right, a lot of us grew up and live in the same neighborhood we were born in. We've never even been to 10 towns, never mind 351. And people have no idea how much money it costs to travel, to have staff, to have offices, to print flyers and all that stuff. So it becomes very cost prohibitive. It makes it a small group of people that are selected that can even play in that game. And right now, Maura, while she might have a good jump shot in the back on the basketball court, when I think about Attorney General and things she did around or didn't do around like the Annie Dukin trials that sent scores of black and Latinos to jail, unfoundedly, I have my doubts about what that means for us once she becomes the CEO of the state.
And an initial stance on marijuana as well.
Right.
She had a stance that was not really in favor of where we are today.
And I'll say that people can change and their position can grow, but if we got to twist your arm and manipulate you to get there, it's not the same as somebody being aligned and being ready to fight. If you got to go dragging and kicking and screaming, it's not the same as you understanding what we've been through and why that should be an important issue if you're talking about equity.
All right. Now this is another one. I think outside, I'll say Tim Murray was sort of the first one that got my attention in this office as far as lieutenant governor. That's another one of those. It depends on, honestly, the administration and who it is. Because what's her name? Was it Carrie Haley? She was kind of a lot in the background, I believe it was, with Romney, and then here and there, and then toward the end, she was popping up. But lieutenant governor, there's a couple of people, and I'll be very honest and transparent, not up full on to date on the lieutenant.
I was going to say the same thing. I really don't follow it because from working inside the State House, it's very similar to a vice president role. They're, like you said, they're only allowed to do what their president or governor assigns to them, whether it's pet projects in their hometown. It's almost like it's like your mentee. You're setting that person up to possibly run for governor when you clear out. So I'm not saying that's all of them. Some people can have their own initiatives and cut that deal saying, listen, if I come onto your campaign, if I become your lieutenant governor, I want to be able to do X, Y, and Z. But typically, it's not really a position that wields a lot of power in the day-to-day governance of the state or any of the municipalities in it. You really do it like a vice president role where you're picking someone or you're working with somebody that can help you gain more votes to get elected because you might be from Eastern Massachusetts, they might be from Western, and it gives you a powerful ticket to fight against the Republicans. Or you might be more central between left and right, and that helps you draw in some more moderates. So that's how I look at the lieutenant governor race. And if people don't know, they can always blank it. You can still cast a ballot and put blank, or you can write in, your cousin's name for that role as well.
All right. So it's about to get a little interesting because we talked about Maura Healey. Get ready to talk about Attorney General. And so Attorney General did have Paul Quinn. I can't remember the proper pronunciation.
Quentin Palfrey.
Quentin Palfrey.
Yep.
And I was actually at the debate they had out that Beckman did in Western Mass. And so he dropped out and he endorsed Andrea. And my understanding is, some of the folks were like, hey, he could have let us know. People are somewhat surprised that he endorsed Andrea. And so also let's talk about the fact that Maura Healey endorsed Andrea. And my understanding is that, with the Maura, I think right now out of everybody is the closest to what we are familiar with as far as a machine. I don't know if you would agree or not. Longevity and being a statewide name and whatever. And so my understanding is that her machine right now, as I said earlier, the presumption is she's kind of good. My understanding, and there's a nice Healy machine behind Campbell.
Yeah, and that's and that goes back to what, just for people to kind of keep it in layman's terms, that machine is like that's your squad. I mean, and I talk about 351 cities and towns. You have to have enough boots on the ground. You have to have enough troops in the streets that can knock doors in every city and town. And you have to have established relationships. You can't just march somebody from Roxbury and drop them in Springfield and expect them to have relationships that they can pull on and knock doors and win people over. So you have to be able to have infrastructure and different crews from those different cities and towns, especially the larger ones that turn out more of the vote. So Maura Healey, having longevity in the state house and have run statewide several times before, she knows who to call for money. She has that team. So when she aligns and endorses somebody who she thinks is going to help her administration, they get the benefit of that as well. It might carry them. It might not carry them. Sometimes endorsements translate into a win. Sometimes they don't. I mean, I watched our former mayor, Martin Walsh. I think every candidate he endorsed over the 7 years he was mayor, all of them lost. So, sometimes you're not good at picking winners, and it doesn't happen for you. But the benefit of having that machine and that money behind you, or that coordination, really goes a long way. So there's a lot of talk about them getting behind Andrea. There's talk about women supporting women. There's talk about women of color supporting women of color. There's all these little small side agendas that people are speculating about that go on in the race as well.
Now let's go. And I've been very public about this. I said it on Twitter, and I actually had some communication with one of them of whom I'm speaking. I was surprised that, and so I think you commented on Twitter. We have Maura Healey and those that endorsed Andrea, but then you have Michelle, Mayor Wu, Senator Elizabeth Warren, and former Mayor Kim Janey, who endorsed Liz Riordan
and the Congresswoman, correct?
As an AP?
Yeah. Didn't she?
Hold on, you give a little bit of commentary and hold on.
I mean, so and I think that we can confirm that or not, but I think people assume that it's amazing how people make assumptions sometimes. Like, just because people share the same level of melanin in their skin doesn't mean that they play nice. Just because they were on the city council at the same time doesn't mean they're gonna play nice. And we know we could talk later about the city council not playing nice, but you have to remember, like, politics. For people that haven't been in it as a candidate, it's warlike, and I know people want it, don't like the extreme language and want it to be civil, but it's not always like that. You're asking friends and family and strangers for a lot of money. You're asking them for their time. You're aligning with beliefs, and people hold on to their beliefs very strongly. So when you clash with somebody, even politically, and there's old sayings that we can disagree without being disagreeable, but not everybody lives by that code. So, to see, I never assumed that Mayor Wu would automatically endorse a former colleague, because that former colleague was also a former competitor. And sometimes there's a mutual respect there and relationships are mended, and sometimes there's not. My first time I ran against Chuck Turner. It was like a battle in Roxbury. But because of the level of respect I had for him and the level of respect he had for me, he and I never had animosity towards each other that we exhibited publicly. Supporters, a little different, but in terms of us being able to work together, I always knew that our goals were the same, just our methods were different. But not everybody carries it the same way. Some people take loss and defeat and things like that totally differently and internalize it and lash out, or it makes them angry, or who knows what it makes them do.
So it's interesting because I did, and to be very honest, even before the mayoral race, there were relationships. I think Andrea was on what, 6 years. So her and Michelle served together for at least like 6 years. So there's that history. They weren't
Right.
always on the same page, and so endorsements, very. And it's so interesting because on one level, some of us are like endorsements don't necessarily turn out votes, but depending, like we used to talk about this. If endorsements don't come with money and bodies, it's really just a thing. Like, I'll be honest, a couple of people like, you going to endorse anybody for what? I mean, yeah, I got to influence, but if I'm not sending any money and any bodies to knock on doors, what good is my endorsement?
Right, and I think there's a scale to that, right? I think if it's more local politics or something that's happening in a community, your voice, your reach has more influence. But once you get into a game where there's a candidate, what's the woman that's running for, I think, Attorney General, that's in the lead. I think she has $5 million she spent out of her own money, right? So now, how are you, James Hills, going to out influence $5 million? $5 million buys a lot of
Raised it.
staff. It buys radio ads. It buys TV ads that are going to have a further reach than you. So it doesn't mean that your endorsement doesn't mean anything, but it doesn't have the same level of impact on the other side. So,
And so Dina was just letting us know there that Ayanna is back in Andrea.
Okay,
And
all
I
right.
think I remember seeing a tweet where I remember seeing a green sign. So I think yeah, it was because it was like a couple of days after Michelle Kim and Senator Warren endorsed Liz Reardon, whatever.
Yeah.
I know I'm probably saying it wrong. So, okay. Yeah. So Ayanna is with Andrea as well. All right. So we did governor, we did lieutenant governor. Let me bring up this other thing here. All right.
Attorney
So
General, state auditor, state treasurer.
auditor, state treasurer. Again, those are now, I think with what's going on, we should pay attention to every office because it
Yeah.
does have some influence on policy. But let's do state auditor first and then maybe end on treasurer, because just for me, the awareness of what's going on with percentage rates and mortgage rates and the housing and whatnot, wondering what role like that office is going to play. Opera, like the what do you call it? The monitoring of the opera funds and whatnot. So the
Right.
treasurer for me, I think, is picking up just a little bit more of a concern and cadence.
Right. Both of those offices are financial in nature.
Yep.
They both keep an eye on the money. Now, it's not typical that if you have, let's say all these positions are filled by Democrats, it's not typical for them to challenge each other and really open up the books. Like, these people are supposed to open up the books, right? If the money's supposed to go here and it doesn't go there, the auditor is supposed to call it out. The treasurer is supposed to make sure they manage the wealth of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, keep a rainy day fund, things like that. So there's some importance in that. But they usually don't go against the grain. They usually just, they take that ride along to see what, they go along to get along, to make it long story short.
Yep. All right. So, and shout out to Paula. She was saying that this is why you're formidable in
Right.
Boston. And
But I also don't want to diminish those two positions. Like, there are some good candidates who have done some good things. Like, one of the candidates I'm familiar with is Chris Dempsey, who
Yep.
was one of the people who looked at the numbers, what it would have done to Boston if we hosted the Olympics, right? Marty Walsh wanted to bring the Olympics to Boston, and on one hand, people think, well, that was a good idea. That would have got us money for the tea and all these wonderful things. But if you actually do your homework and you look at any city in the world that has hosted the Olympics, what usually happens is poor communities get run over. They get pushed out. There's eminent domain. Things are built. They're left to be decrepit years later once that's gone. And those poor communities really bear the brunt of it. So I think, this is my personal opinion about his effort in that, he did the city of Boston a service. Marty Walsh tried to diminish it and say it's just 10 people on Twitter. Well, he got his ass whooped in that case by 10 people on Twitter. So, you do want people who he rides the T. He's very vocal about transportation. You do, and the T where where they're embroiled in money mismanagement and things like that. You want somebody like I said, actually will go against the grain if elected to that position. So I didn't mean to diminish that or be pejorative about. I can't use words like pejorative. I said I was going to keep it like we talking on the block. I don't want to. I don't
You
want
would
to.
say that on the block though to keep it 100. You would.
Yeah. Well, and then they would be like, "What the hell? There you go with that slick talk." So I'm gonna keep it simple. I wasn't trying to demean the position or belittle it. It does have its respect if it's handled correctly.
I think even more so now, based on everything you said, and just to add a little icing on it, even with what's going on in our economy, I believe Goldberg, there was some familiarity we had with Goldberg, and there was really some attempts to institute some sort of like policies or programs that can come out of that office as well, even if it's just knowledge. And so there is the ability. I think and we can go here in a minute. I would like, if it's cool with you, to do state secretary, and then there's a certain order I want to go in with the Senate and
Hey, I'm riding with you.
okay.
It's your show, so
Right.
I'm all for that.
We wouldn't be here and have the folks that are in the room today if it was just me talking about it. So
I
let's
don't
keep
know
that
about that,
100.
but I also want to be careful of saying we unless we speak in French, because when you say we're familiar with Goldberg, I don't know how many of us that are on this that are paying attention even know her first name, have ever met her, ever got a flyer from her or the nine. So there's a reason that these offices are still very much disconnected from our day-to-day lives and our neighborhood. And part of that goes back to what I spoke to originally. I think a lot of the Democratic Party, especially in these statewide races, they take for granted that poor people, blacks, and Latinos default to voting Democrat, and that they're going to ride that wave. So as long as they have a D next to their name, when you go in, you're just going to check all the D's on the ballot in September or November, and they get a free ride. And I'm not with that. I'm not with them getting it, and that's why I don't really identify as a Democrat and more independent, because to me that's bullshit.
It's a bunch of listen. I've got a chance through Donovan and Kristen to get a little more familiarity of what was going on with the state Democratic Party. And just like there's a change, we'll get to City Hall and City Council in a minute. And there's some nationally, but I believe even statewide, the Democratic State Party, the hold and the beholdenness that these Democrats used to have with them, it's changing from a lot of the scandal and racism and homophobia and stuff that was going on in some of its leadership. And so with this, it's a cuss word in Florida now, but with this wokeness and the mobility and the education level of people like Carrie Mays and those over at Teen Empowerment and folks like them, a lot of this energy that presumably used to be with the Democratic Party, I think they're just standing their ground a lot more of wanting to desire to see concrete policies not only introduced but carry through the line and actually become legislation.
I agree. I would agree with that, but I still think though the people that you named, who I have great respect for, are still anomalies and not the norms. And,
Absolutely.
and even if we replicated them where you could, like I said, in the Worcesters, Springfields, Brocktons, Bostons, New Bedfords, Lowells, Lawrences, that still leaves about 341 towns where there are no Carrie Mays, there are no Kristen Halberts, there are no Donovan Birches. There's almost no black or Latino or even poor participation on these Democratic parties, from the ward committees in a city like Boston all the way up to towns where you don't even have. It's just homogenous. It's as milky as you can get.
I was going to say, how are you going to break down and correlate homogenous to what you was just saying?
There you go. It's all milk. It's all one color. It's all the same. It's homogenous. It's like milk.
We're going to have that conversation about the milk still pouring through some of the streets of Boston in a few minutes. All right. So state secretary, so from observation of energy again, and at some point, maybe we can check in about this, because some years ago, we didn't give value to social media. We were like, social media doesn't produce votes and you got to be on doors, which I still think is true. Yeah. But I think the pandemic changed a lot of that. And it does still have impact at the level that the just visibility and the population that is in use of social media a lot. Those are the ones you're trying to get to actually come out maybe and vote for you. Us old heads, Twitter, whatever, we're going to participate. So I think based on all that, I just said, from a visual standpoint,
Go ahead.
from a visual standpoint, Tanisha looks like she has been across the state. I've noticed
Yeah.
that about her and Andrea. Andrea's day one. I don't know the amount, but Andrea, I suspected if we drew a map from the time she announced in Cobden Square until about 10 o'clock at night when she got back home in Mattapan, she probably hit about 4 or 5 towns and made the central and western Mass. I believe Tanisha has been visible as well. And she's been, let's just be a little petty for a minute. She also has been handing Mike Galvin his kahunas in a couple of these debates. And again, I know debates don't win votes, but thoughts.
Bill Galvin.
Who I
William
say?
Galvin. Mike Galvin. I think he's a sportscaster.
Oh,
But but the last name's right. So I
Mike
would
Galvin was head of property at City Hall. That's where that came from.
So I would agree with you on the optics, and I know I had a great conversation with Madam President Sullivan, Tanisha Sullivan, the other day, and I know she's crisscrossing the state.
Yeah.
But I would warn people that feel comfortable that one, our social media is run by an algorithm, so your perspective is limited. Right, you've subscribed to her page, you follow her, so of course you get a good view in it. And so even though she's working hard, that's why I named the challenges of really being accepted in the 351 towns. The piece that I think people miss is stronger than the social media influence is the influence of ignorance. And I chose the word ignorance because Madam President did hand him his ass when he tried to call her ignorant.
Hold on. Because we can put our little breaks in here if need be. You go ahead and I'll let you know in 2 seconds when I have it queued up.
All right. So he tried to reference her as ignorant, as usual, typically downplaying a highly intelligent, credentialed black woman. Unfortunately, I believe that the masses of Massachusetts, those other 340 towns, I'll even give another 10 towns the benefit of the doubt, but 330 towns have known his name and seen his name on the ballot for 27 years. He's been in that seat. And before he was in that seat, he was a state representative. So he's been around for a very long time, and name recognition carries. And so that is a huge mountain to overcome. And the second piece of that is, for certain neighborhoods, most of the neighborhoods and cities and towns in this woke has become, they're using woke as a negative term.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead. Run. You got the clip.
We got. Yeah. Hold on for 1 second. Let's get this. We got about.
Because this to me also, we saw some of this disrespect today at the city council, which is all far too often happening to Black and Latina women who assert themselves and
listen,
not being aggressive, but asserting themselves just like men do every single day.
Listen, this was so interesting to me, and I got to be honest. This will probably be my 15th, 16th time watching it. All right, here we got 55 seconds, sir.
I have to go back to a few comments that the secretary has made.
Misunderstandings, actual experience. It just shows my opponent's ignorance of the office.
I want to make it clear, I am not ignorant and I am not misinformed. I am highly credentialed. A BA, a JD, MBA, I am highly experienced. 20 years of legal practice. I am highly experienced, a civil rights leader who has driven impact in this city, across the Commonwealth, and in this nation. I am more qualified and credentialed today than the day you walked into that office. Today than the day you walked. More qualified and credentialed today than the day you walked into that office. I am not ignorant and I am not misinformed. What I am is centered in our communities. What I am is centered on the issues that matter most to everyday people. We have to do something to increase voter participation, and sitting behind a desk at 1 Ashburton Place is not going to get us where we need to be.
The clap.
As Denzel said in Training Day, boom.
I mean, Carlos, we don't have our. Hold on. Carlos and I have talked about some stuff in our equipment, and we don't. The only thing I can probably find on here right now that would be appropriate would be.
It's
she got him.
But again, like
it doesn't. Yeah.
We have to understand that his what he displayed is the attitude that the majority of the voters in Massachusetts possess.
So in let me ask, nationally, statewide, and it's funny because in our conversations in preparation, I talked about today about the Trumpism that we saw being displayed since the vaccination.
I hate that term.
What?
Trumpism.
Why? Because it was already there.
Right. He's just Ronald McDonald.
amplified it.
You don't get mad at Ronald McDonald for how the French fries came out. He's just the clown that stands that they put on the bag. The feelings have been there since 1776.
Since when?
14. You want to go 1492? I mean. When do you want to date it? Like when the Mayflower arrived on the shores, when they landed in Virginia and a penal colony and brought their criminals over here from England, that attitude has been there forever. He's just one man that embodies it. It ain't the one man that concerns me. It's the 90 million racist people behind him that concern me.
And that's the thing I used to say, that he did sort of bring them out. And so that is a generalization also based on, because I'll be honest, a couple of years ago, I'll say late 15, it was so surprising to me to see all these Trump signs, and they were in Phil's corner. And so I was just saying, we take Massachusetts for just like, I guess, what we were saying about the Democratic Party. I'm conditioned because we just think. And so what the disrespect that is going on at that level, my question to you, I'm going to speed it up, is with the awareness, with what's going on with Black women and protect, women and things like that. And to be honest, the progressive, we know, is heavily dominated by white women. And so Tanisha is seen a progressive candidate. And so
that's another term I hate, progressive.
Well, but let's go there and remember to come back to Tanisha, because there is a lot of frustration of people that feel that the progressive agenda is white driven and
white women driven
and driven into the crowd of what the Black community wants as their tenets of a good quality of life. That's something that I've heard across from academia and also from folks like Ramilda Pierre, but not to put opinion. Well, we know Ramilda don't care.
But so even that ain't new. White women have co-opted the idea of progress. Let me go back to Sojourner Truth. They asked Sojourner Truth to testify and speak about women's suffrage before she had the right to vote, before she had the right to own property. And before she spoke, they said, whoa, just go up there and talk about women. Don't go up there and talk about being Black. It's no different than today. They have co-opted, are trying to co-opt the civil rights movement. They are building nonprofits in Massachusetts on the back of the work that our elders have done, both Black and Latino, and mostly a lot of women. And I said I was going to get some cussings. It's fucked up. It's fucked up.
So there's a couple of things, and I just want to check my facts. I just want to check my facts before I say it. And you may know this, but I remember in 2016 when Trump got in and they were looking at the data. What's his name? King with the board on.
It was white women that put him in.
And so let me say something I've been thinking for a while. It is so interesting that the result of what these women did in 2016 brings us to the success of the long-awaited right-wing folks, where now the same population that put the amplification of what we know and what you backdated to in an office, to now where that same group of people are now wondering and questioning, why is it that the right to my body is now being overseen by what?
I know I'm smiling because I'm agreeing with you. Like, and I want to be mindful that we are speaking in somewhat generalizations. But if the shoe fits, wear it, right? If the shoe fits, wear it. So clearly, I don't mean every single white woman. I have, you know what I mean. But if the shoe fits, I'm talking about you. So some of these people are willing to cut off their nose to spite their face. They will co-opt the movement. They will lift this, and they're playing both sides to the middle. Like the man you want to end misogyny, even though it's the man that you sleep next to your husband, who you want to keep you from getting your mother from getting a bank account or your grandmother from getting a bank account until 1970. But at the same time, you want control over your body. You can't have it both ways. You can't sleep. You can't be in bed politically or physically with your oppressor and then expect them to love you in the morning. It just doesn't work like that.
And that's where I've been holding, and I've said it to a few people, but not so much publicly. But I sat one day and looked at what's going on with abortion rights, and look what's going on and voting rights and things like that. And then at the same time, it's so interesting because it's like in the progressive party, we understand that it is some of it, and I'll be very careful because words matter. It is some of white women that's pushing that agenda. But the conservative party, presumably, the majority of some of the white women is who got them in. And so now you got at both. Wow, I just really thought of something. At both helms of what's going on. That
they playing both sides to the middle.
But what I mean is now the biggest influence, as much as we think I don't want to get off track. As much as we think it's white men, you know, that was pulling the strings and what Koch brothers and all those other stuff. When it comes down to voting and getting folks in on both sides, it's actually the sum of a majority.
I mean, yeah. I mean, the shit is who you think is teaching our children in the schools? You know what I mean? They're just as influential in the system. You know, whether you're talking about Counselor Aaron Murphy. You know, let's use Counselor Aaron Murphy for quick. We're going to get back to Madam President Tanisha Sullivan, but here's a white woman who has showed herself, to me at least. I don't know how everybody else views her. And she's a school teacher. She was a school teacher before she became a city councilor. So here we have people with no cultural competency, or whose cultural competency definitely doesn't align with ours, indoctrinating our children day to day. And while they're doing that, taking up a good job in the city. I mean, so they're hitting you 1, 2, 3, 4 different ways. But then they tell you, hey, they grab all the black women, Latinas, and say, come on, let's fight for an equal pay dollar. Those black and Latina women ain't even making the same dollar, the same rate that the white women are making. Never mind getting to what the white man is making. You see what I'm saying? Like that duplicitousness, that two-faced snake ass behavior is what's killing us. It's part of what's killing us.
It's see, here's where I am, and not to get too far off track, and we brought up Aaron, and we'll get to the city council, because I was watching, you know, you and I are trained to watch body language and stuff like that. There was some stuff I saw. The thing that was interesting is we said early on, when they ran, what's this, 22, they're running again in 23. So when they ran in 19, I think she ran in 17 or whatever first time running.
Yeah.
I think was she's cut from the same cloth of some folks over in an area that we identify as part of the south part of Boston. And
White Dorchester.
White Dorchester, and we'll get back to it today as far as, you know, city council and the hearing and what's going on in DA's race and whatnot. But, you know, it's just amazing. So we got on this by saying that on the progressive end, I would hope and believe that they would help push Tanisha through.
Right, because if they were really about same day voter registration, helping small businesses, if you're the Secretary of State, you know, making sure that there's supports for just more freedom of information. Secretary of State controls information at the state
deeds.
level.
The deeds, they have influence on mortgages and stuff like that, paperwork. And so, you know, if you didn't, Tanisha was on a few last week. And she really broke down, you know, what that office is. So go check that out. Speaking of check out, in case you pop in and out, you can hear Carlos Enriquez on the PSA show every Sunday morning at 10 a.m. on Spark FM Online. Right. Just as we're making reference to where you can get some more stuff. So, all right, we talked about Secretary of State, and I believe that we are coming. So I want to do this, and I think as you hear my lineup, you're probably going to start laughing at me. If I were to ask you,
I'm gonna let you cue up the question. So don't just throw out a race, because I don't want to put my personal opinion on the race. But if you have a specific question, I prefer to engage that way. But if you want to play it safe and you want to just throw out the race, I'll take the first leap. It doesn't matter to me.
I'm talking about order. That is all I'm talking about.
Oh, okay. Well,
I will bring up the race. That's it.
However you want to do it.
So, all right, I'll start with mine. 6 Suffolk representative, which right now is Harris, Hardaway, and Russell Holmes.
The blackest district in the state of Massachusetts. Just so people know what we're talking about.
Representative, because I thought the 2nd Suffolk was designed now.
I'm sorry, the 6th Suffolk State Representative District.
Okay.
is the blackest state rep district. The most black people live in that district than anywhere, concentrated than anywhere else in Massachusetts.
That's so interesting. So that's for the 6th district. It's for the 2nd on the senatorial rate, and it's also Ayanna. I don't know if it's black, but Ayanna possesses. I think it's more around economic level, wealth gap level. All right, so let's start with that. That is Harris Hardaway, who is a gay black man, who is an entrepreneur, who is part owner of a boutique in Nubian Square, who still lives in. I'm not exactly. I believe he is in. Well, not District 4. This is a state. He's in the district. And so I looked up today, and this brother got 2. Again, they don't produce votes, but Harris got 2 commercials on.
On what?
What's
on what? On what? On what?
I want to. So I fluctuate between about 2 or 3 channels: CNN, the Food Network.
He got a TV ad.
I seen 2 TV. seen whatever the problem is. I'm not lying, Carlos. Straight up, serious as shit. I saw 2 ads on TV. Okay. And I mean, the local providers, they can cut in, but and the second one was different from the first one. So I don't know if he has a 30-second and then a 15-second, but I remember I said, oh, well, and my first thought, how we think, I'm like, oh, he must have raised some money.
I'm gonna say that my next thing is to go to OCPF and figure out how he got enough money to pay for that, because I ain't never been able to afford a TV ad. I couldn't afford a radio ad, never mind a TV ad. Like we do it the old-fashioned way and knock on those doors because my shoe leather is free, or it costs $80 to get some new shoes. But yeah, I mean, he's a new candidate up against Russell Holmes, who's been sitting since 2011.
Yep.
And before people get like, oh, that's a long time. In the state level and the federal level, seniority matters because it often lends you towards leadership and gives you experience on how the game goes. And so, I'm not here to campaign for either one of them, but I think there's some drastic differences in terms of the community participation from what I've heard when I've watched both interviews. Yep. Their involvement in problem solving in the community and just the level of activity. So I'm happy to see people run and challenge incumbents. That's always healthy for the community. But people should do their due diligence and not just have an emotional reaction like someone's been there a long time, because they might have been producing for a long time. You might not know about the millions of dollars that they brought in through budget amendments, or that they helped pass legislation to certify police officers in Massachusetts or decertify them when they're caught up in some bullshit. You know what I mean? Like we got to do our homework.
That's the thing that is so interesting. As much as I have issues and have been very vocal about issues with my state representative, in a conversation with him one day, I sat and listened to him. Russell is this big 50,000 foot. He's not going for the 500,000. Russell is the type in policy that he's talking about the billions. We have some disagreement about whether, it's guaranteed to trickle down or not. But I have to give him credit for that because he is the most I believe he is the most senior color in the state.
Yes.
And that almost leads to, and I don't want to, the caucus.
I mean, the caucus has grown, but their efficiency level, and again, people should do some homework. I mean, they have some wins under their belt. I think we could do with a lot more focus on and they have some problems too. If you read the banner, the leadership rotates. Some people are good leaders and able to bring them together. There was a lot of criticism about State Representative China Tyler. I'm just putting it out there, James. You know what I'm saying? I didn't write the article, but I read it. There's people that say that they don't want to collaborate and work with others, which is an interesting take, because when you're one of 160, truth be told, you ain't going to get shit done in the House as one of 160. You can barely get shit done as the progressive group, which is 40 of 160. You know what I'm saying? The magic number is 81, and you need a little bit of power in that 81 to get something done. So when we talk about these 351 towns, they're represented by 160 people. If you can't figure out how to get to a majority, or at least, work with your colleagues who are like-minded, then what the hell are you doing there? And that's not directed specifically at Representative Tyler. That's for all of them that find themselves sitting on an island because they're not working well with their colleagues.
Well, that's a state rep level, and it not to associate with or say there's any similarities, but as you're talking, I just think about somebody else from the state that got into the state Senate. That and this thing, we're going to wind up saying this a lot during this session, but all skin don't mean kin. And now we have a state senator in who is, and we'll get to the DA's race in a minute. So let's close out with Tanisha. I believe the plan for her is that she has to continue to be across the state over this weekend and be on doors, and her team, hopefully a statewide team. I just saw a reel that put up a lot of endorsements. There's the I believe the iron workers, SEIU in them. And so hopefully that if there's any bargaining going on with the campaign between the unions and maybe send out half flyers, but then we need bodies on doors to get twos and
threes out, right? But let's be clear. She needs to carry Boston with super numbers, right? Like all of Boston needs to come out. She needs to be able to carry Boston, Worcester, Springfield, Brockton, Lowell, Lawrence, New Bedford. If she doesn't carry those towns with a large majority of 60 or 70% of the vote,
what do you call it? What's the word? Cosmopolitan. What is the word? Not
the metropolitan areas, the major metro areas in the state. You drinking a cosmopolitan? Yeah, I was gonna say you drinking a cosmopolitan.
So before I go too far, so I wound up getting to we was talking about Tanisha, and then I was getting to
then we did six Suffolk. So now we get whatever's next on your list.
6 Suffolk. Let's go to 15th Suffolk State Rep. Which you helped me because you were saying numbers earlier today, and it's sad, but I identify districts by names, which is not good because they're the people's seat. Not to get too deep into that. So the 15th is where. Go ahead.
So the 15th, when we talked about leadership and Russell Holmes being the longest standing member in the House of Person of Color, that seat used to be held by Jeffrey Sanchez, the highest ranking Latino.
Hold on.
In the state.
Was that him today trying to break up the fight at City Hall?
Oh, I don't know.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Jeff's not usually the kind. I don't know if Jeff's the type to jump in the middle of a fight. He usually goes along to get along. At least he did with the Speaker of the House when we were in the House. It didn't matter, or the mayor. It didn't matter what we were doing as blacks and Latinos. But anyway, he used to hold that seat, and I think he got too comfortable in that seat, and he was defeated by Representative Nika Elugardo, who held that seat. She is vacating that seat to run for the second Suffolk Senate seat. So she leaves that seat open, and that seat is a contested seat. I believe there are three or four candidates, maybe. I'm actually only familiar with two based on their work, Roxanne Longoria and Sam Montano. So I think there are a couple others, and I don't mean to omit them intentionally. I just don't know who you are because your marketing hasn't reached me, or I haven't heard people talk about you. Maybe you should hit up Harese Hardaway and tell you how to get a TV commercial so that James can see you, because I just don't know how a candidate with $1,500 in the bank has a TV commercial. But
when I tell you, if I'm lying, I'm flying. I looked up first commercial. I was like, oh, you know us. My first thing was, ooh, he got some money. And then I seen the second one that was different. I said, oh. Yeah. So
the 15th Suffolk is parts of Jamaica Plain. It's Mission Hill. It's Roxbury Crossing.
Just give it back?
Yeah, I didn't want us to get lost in it. I know people are chomping at the bit for this city council conversation.
Yes, they ready.
But I want people to know where the 15th Suffolk is, right? The 6th Suffolk is Mattapan, a little bit of Rosendale, a little bit of Hyde Park, a little bit of Dorchester coming down to Franklin Park, focused on Blue Hill Avenue. The second Suffolk, the 15th Suffolk is Mission Hill, Bromley Heath, JP, that area. So I just want people to know their boundaries, where they are, because if you have family in that area, you might want to hit them up and tell them who to vote for and use your own influence.
Anything else on Nika there? So we know Roxanne. Roxanne has a lot of good work. I recognize the name San Montano. For some reason, I recognize the name
Montano. There's a tilde over the last N.
Montano.
I need black people to be culturally competent with Latino names too. Next motherfucker that calls me Hernandez is gonna hear it. Enriquez is not that hard. Don't just be defaulting to the two Latino names that you can remember. Yeah, not with an S. S is the Portuguese version. Z is the Spanish version.
I called you there. Yes, Carlito. All right. So let's go. We got we did the 6th, we did the 15th. All right, we're getting good. Let's get to the 5th.
The 5th Suffolk District, a seat that I'm fond of. The most one of the most. I used to hold that seat. It is one of the most diverse state representative districts in the United States of America. It's also, I think, the second blackest district in the state of Massachusetts. So again, when you talk about where blacks and Latinos are concentrated, that drink got you hot. You all right?
Yeah, and also I didn't turn the AC on, and so
Oh, damn.
under this light, and I'm like, oh my God. Go ahead, sir.
So the diversity and the needs of this, where you concentrate blacks and Latinos and people of color, usually the social ills of Democrats and white people turning their backs on these communities for decades and generations. It's where you see the gun violence. It's where you see low education rates. It's where you see high STI rates in youth. It's where you see mass incarceration. So those seats to me are some of the most important seats in the city, if not the state. Conversely, unfortunately, because of those social ills, they also have the lowest voter turnout. Now, they don't have the lowest voter turnout because they don't have the potential voters there, because every state rep district has the same amount of people, plus or minus a few, that are 18 plus voting age population. We just haven't figured out how to mobilize them, because a lot of our elected officials will come out and mobilize you to get out to vote, but you don't never see another flyer for them until they want you to vote again. They ain't coming to you and telling them when to call on a bill, when to call on a budget. They're not calling to tell you what they voted on. They wait and hope in 2 years later and say, hey, look what I did. Don't forget to vote for me because I'm out here fighting for you every day. But you don't know whether they're getting their ass knocked out, whether they it's a first round TKO, or whether they putting up the good fight. They ain't telling you who they fighting. They fighting some invisible people who they won't even name because they scared to rock the boat. So the 5th Suffolk is, I think, 2 formidable candidates. Danielson Tavares, who was actually my legislative aide when I was sitting in that seat, and Chris Worrell.
You gave Daniel his start. Now wait. Hold on. I want to credit that. But
Mentorship is important. Always has been. My father taught it to me. I've done it in my neighborhood. I've always tried to create pathways, whether it was when I was working in the private sector, outside the neighborhood, and then once I was in the neighborhood. I lived in a district where the Cape Verdean population was a very strong and active population in the civics. And so I could see the future that at some point this seat should probably be held by someone of Cape Verdean descent, so that they can have a collective voice. I didn't expect it to happen the way it happened with Evandro succeeding me in that seat. However, I'm happy that there is a voice there, that more Cape Verdeans are active based on the candidacy of John Barrows, Liz Miranda, Evandro Carvalho, and the opposition, Danielson Tavares' opposition is Chris Worrell, who's no stranger to politics. So he was an aide to State Senator Nick Collins. He's worked for Mayor Wu. He's the brother of District 4 City Councilor Brian Worrell. So you have 2 guys who know the inside and the outside, and the community is going to have to decide based on how they pressing them doors and doing their homework. Their websites don't tell you too much. So I suggest people call them on the phone and ask them some pointed questions.
We don't want folks to start tweeting people's phone numbers and whatnot.
I mean, some of these folks don't even have a phone number on their website. I've been trying to contact people to get interviews for them, and I got to go through 4 steps to find them. And if that's indicative of the way, if that's the way they're gonna roll when they're in office, my God.
Listen, couple of things. It's so interesting. I just want to interject here because we're going to get the city council. This is about the 7th text I've got in the last 3 or 4 hours asking me, Jimmy, what's going on? We're going to get to it in just a few minutes. All right. So we talked about the let's now, and I think here is where I'm going to probably be a little bit of the most petty. Not petty, but just,
own it. If you're going to be petty, you got to own it.
I want to own it. I'm going to be petty.
Own it. Right. So I'm going to refresh my glass.
As a result of Liz Miranda, we talk about the 5th. There are people that jumped in and running for the 5th because Liz Miranda, along with Nika Elugaro, Elugaro. I thought it was because when she's on here, it rolls. When she said it on here, I paid attention. She rolled it differently.
Play the tape.
I don't have it.
I mean, there's a D. It's before the O. The D can't be silent. It ain't Django.
Listen, Mr. Enriquez. I'm going to go with your word for it because I'm sure you know what you talk about. All right.
But yes, Liz has vacated that. Like Nika, Representative Elugaro has vacated her 15th Suffolk seat. Liz has vacated her 5th Suffolk seat to also run in that 2nd Suffolk Senate seat.
So
right, and so for people that understand the big words, every 4 state rep districts fall into a state senate. A state senate district is 4 times as large as a state representative district.
Yeah. So and I've been honest about this on the platform and whatever, public, private. For me,
I think I know where you're going with this one.
For me, there was only 2 formidable candidates in the race. I don't care who's
Okay.
gotten in. I know of 4. You said there's 5, right? And there's Brother James. I used to go with him, go to church with him at 12th Baptist, and so I was a little surprised. No, he's probably well, this is after dark. Out of the 3 that I don't consider,
I mean, if you don't consider some of the, there's no way you consider him a formidable candidate. I won't say he's not viable. He's on the ballot,
and not
but
the other 2.
Yeah, there's no way you can. There's no way you can. You're being super petty if you say that. But go ahead, say it, own it.
I have said from the beginning, the only 2 formidable candidates on that goddamn ticket is Liz and Nika.
Okay, I disagree.
So again, I'm owning my pettiness.
Okay.
They are formidable. They are viable. Now,
one is even the most experienced. The one of them that you're leaving out has the most experienced. Go ahead, take a sip.
No, this tagine is good.
All right, well, chug it if you got to. I don't see where your garnish is. You already ate your garnish?
I didn't have a garnish. I just had.
Half stepping.
Curtis Rollins is on. Oh shit.
Mr. Fuck your comfort.
Listen, so everybody knows that I have issues with Diane.
But now they do.
Well, they do. If they didn't, they don't. And I mean, we're hospitable when we see each other, whatever. But there's some things that were done. You're aware of a couple. There's some things that were done, and it just at this point, anyway, I'm not going to get into all that. So I have issues, and then on top of the fact, we know some backstories, like candidates that are in that race right now. You encourage one of them to run. And then all of a sudden, we're going to be given over to sort of I can't remember what the exact term is, but the type of politics that because of what was going on in Liz's social media and the whole thing around the dude and the tweets and the traveling and all this other stuff, all of a sudden, there was a backing away from, because we thought that, first of all, the justification around the fact that you thought that a white person would jump in the most black senatorial district that we've ever had. Like that, come on, that was a crazy excuse.
What white person would jump in?
My understanding is that there was a conversation or some concern about what was going on with Liz, that it would leave room for somebody white to go in and try to get that seat. And that's why
sounds
like
almost ridiculous.
It does, but for that to even be some of the justification of why there was a switch up, and again, I'm going from what I heard, and my understanding is that Liz was encouraged to run, and then all of a sudden, someone switched up.
I mean, if we're being honest about what's out in the public, I'm not going to betray some background conversations. But Liz was the first one in the race, right? She was the first one to declare.
First one in the race, yep.
And originally, Rep Miranda was the first one in the race. Rep Elugardo was going to support Liz in the race. I think people in the community, from what I understand, quietly called Rep Elugardo and said, we prefer you to be the candidate to run because we think you would be stronger than Rep Miranda would. So then Rep Elugardo gets in the race. And then I'm not sure the timeline between when Reverend Minion Culpepper and former Senator Diane Wilkerson get in the race. But listen, all you need to do to get in the race is to go to Ashburton Place, be a registered voter, live in the district, and get enough signatures from registered voters, and you're on the ballot. At least, Roy ain't on the ballot, thank God, but you know what I mean? So
he didn't make it because his signs are out there. And I just looked and snickered the other day. I'm like, oh my God.
Roy's running in a race that he's been districted out of.
Oh God, I said Rep Enriquez. Carlos.
I'll take it. That's how we do in the business. We keep the title for life.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So my understanding is that in some of those, so I wanted, words matter. And when we say some people from the community, technically they are from the community, but some of the names that were mentioned is also in some of those phone calls that what you were referring about, folks getting in the race. This, again, I think, and you and I both know this, sometimes with the platform, you can't unsee or can't unhear stuff before it's too late. And so that's why I don't throw everything out there that I hear. But when it's from two unconnected, sources, I'm like, there may be some validity to this. So anyway,
I prefer more candidates in the race. I like the fact that Rep Elugardo got in the race. The more candidates you have in the race, the more contrast and the more ideas you hear that hold all the candidates accountable to incorporating some of those ideas. Like, we ain't reinventing the wheel. Sometimes you got to steal an idea from somebody. That's a good idea. I'm not going to not use that because
and we've seen that in Boston.
So
Seen
I,
it.
I personally, I know some people don't like challenges. I know some people don't like, they want the easy path. I like a challenge. I like a district race where everybody got to get out and knock some doors, and people are split, and mothers are voting for one person, daughters are voting for someone else, fathers and sons are arguing. I've been in those races before when I ran against Chuck. I love it. I love it. It makes us all sharper. Steel sharper as steel, iron sharper as iron, whatever cliche you want to throw to it.
Is I mean that is on the premise of democracy, and I've owned from the time I said this, I was being petty about the two candidates, of which I don't think should have got in the race and just put their support behind two people. So
But you got to say, I mean, so is it? It's just strictly personal. Like this old guard. There's the baby boomers versus Generation X.
I'll be honest. It is so everybody. Let's put it out there because when she announced, all the media put it out there. And with all credence, and we're going to get into this later, where there are issues with electeds, being in the media around allegations or whatever. But that is the number one thing that when she announced, that's the first thing the media did. The other piece is, and it's a little bit of hearsay.
Same shit they did to me too.
And that's why I made that. And that's why I kind of made that. And so with that being said, it's kind of like because I think at one point, if I don't know if we talked about it, but I was like, would you ever run again? You know what I'm saying? And I think you, I ain't going to say what you said, if I remember right, but
I probably said something to the effect of hell fucking no. Because not only damn the Globe and the Herald, who, it's unfortunate that we still let them decide who our leaders should be.
It's funny now, they kind of getting on the same level, but go ahead.
Right. But, I think the community, and we'll talk about this when we get to the city council race, because I think it's really apparent there. The community has a funny way of deciding when they side with corporate media and when they side with the justice, the legal system, and when they don't. And a lot of times it comes down to some personal preferences or personal biases. And so once I saw enough of that, people talking about returning citizens and rehabilitating people and things like that, but I really just think that's a bunch of smoke that they blowing. And so I would never put myself, I don't need to, and I think I've given enough service to the city that I don't need to make myself vulnerable for other people's opinions in that form of fashion. It's just not worth it to me. And I like to make room, like I said, and also I have trained people who are running for office now. So, I don't need to do that.
You're a kingmaker.
Leaders develop leaders.
Leaders develop. Okay, all right. I thought this was after dark. We were just going to say what it is. No, I'm messing.
That's an old DSNI slogan that I learned growing up. Leaders do develop leaders. Leaders build consensus and they develop other leaders.
Listen, there's a whole bunch of legacy you got out here, bro. So I will say this: in as much as if I have issues with Wilkerson, one of the things I told somebody early on was, with all due, as a human being, as a black woman, that was my concern about how the media would drag her. And when we talk to people and they ask they're running, for me, one of the number one questions I ask, do you have the mental fortitude? So with all due respect, she's gotten this far, got on the ballot.
I think she definitely got that part.
She does have the mental fortitude, but which also makes her a formidable candidate. So I have to give that balance, because that was a concern when you talked about, that when I made the reference point to the first thing the media did, that was from a place of like, don't put yourself in that sort of thing where that's what they're going to do, and then maybe distract from where we got to. You just because you get in doesn't mean you're going to win, and there is no real heir apparent. The heir apparent happens through the voters, but it just, and Carlos, let's just know we won't go on that second Suffolk district race is interesting. Can we agree?
So I'll end on this, and this is not an endorsement, but this is just something I've learned from experience. When I entered the State House in 2011, Massachusetts has not had a more effective legislator than Senator Diane Wilkerson. Love her, hate her, respect her, fear her, whatever the case may be. When I talk to the white men, white women, leadership, rank and file,
shit done.
Legendary shit that people will never know, that she will never get her flowers for. And however you feel about what happened with her, the woman was sent away for 3.5 years. So either we pay our debt to society and you let people live. The punk ass media is going to continue to drag people because they don't give a shit about us. But what we do as a community, how we treat people when they've paid their debt, whether fair or not fair, is what I pay attention to. And that's why I wouldn't run, but she definitely had I had the same conversation. Like, hey, you saw how they treated me. but she cut from a different cloth, and we in different places in our lives. So, that's for the voters to decide on Tuesday.
And that is real valid, because that's one thing that I mean, I wasn't as politically aware or astute back then, but I remember seeing her on the news and whatnot, and standing there, and she'd be the only black woman amongst all the white men. And I got to be honest to say, she was one of the strongest advocates for the LGBTQ plus issues early on, before it was even popular.
Exactly.
So we got to give balance to that. It's just that again.
I know. She rubbed you the wrong way a couple times. I know. Yeah. I was there. I get it. We've talked about it.
So Carlos,
let's move on.
Yes. And you know what? I ain't mess with you. So one of the things, and we'll move on in 2 seconds and get to this sort of city council and DA race. One of the things I realized in the last election, and I don't know if you and I talked about it a lot, but I had to sit back and say, damn, the influence of my rapport, a couple relationships, and familiarity with a lot of people that morph into candidates, I found myself where I couldn't move beyond my filter of all my experiences with them up until that point they became a candidate. You know what I'm saying? And I really, it seemed to some extent to some of the candidates and to some of the community, because beyond what my personal thing is, if they're a better candidate for the community, I got to get over my own shit and make the right choice.
No, but it's dope that you said that. It's dope that you said that out loud.
Yes, sir. And so that was the mayoral. Now, am I, based on this conversation and stuff a few minutes ago?
We're still growing. You're still growing.
But I really believe that, and this isn't an endorsement, but there is a certain cadence that one of the two top formidable candidates have that, I don't know what goes on behind closed doors, but in public, they move and shaker. They get some stuff done. You know what I mean? And then the other one is a little quiet in the background and get some stuff done as well as far as policy. And so I just, in this, and I'll be honest, I'm not doing any endorsements, but if I was, I probably wouldn't endorse in races where I'm not in the district. Right. Now, if somebody asked me, but to put up on Facebook, hey, if you live in Second Suffolk, I'd either not do it, or if I do, I'd put a disclaimer.
It would be nice if a lot of other elected officials did that. I see a lot of elected officials endorse in a race in the neighborhoods where they never even walked into a bodega before, but they think they should be able to come into the neighborhood and tell who should run that race. I saw John Santiago do that when he trotted out all the white people from the suburbs when he was running for mayor last year. But the reason why I'm glad that you said that is because I need to speak truth to the community, right? When we're thinking about candidates, I think people, and this is just my opinion, I said I would separate opinion from fact. I think people need to move away from their selfish, superficial thoughts on how they judge a candidate. And here's what I mean. A lot of us think that Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley is legit, has done some incredible work. I have heard more superficial criticisms, and they say it's harder for black women to run, or women to run in general, than anybody else. And I believe it because I've seen it. If I told you I've had more conversations from black women about her hair, her shoes, her white coat, what she wears, and I'm talking about when she was a city councilor. I heard more criticism about that than I ever heard about policy, I ever heard about voting record, or anything else. And so people have the right to vote for whatever they, some people vote for the shoes that you show up in. Some candidates campaign in a t-shirt. Some wear shirt and tie. You never caught Representative Holmes outside of a shirt and tie. People have different codes of how they show up in the community. But as voters, the game is bigger than us, right? And it does require some showmanship. Like, when you do good work, part of the hang up for politicians is they also have to then let you know of the good work that they're doing, and they have to do it in a timely fashion.
Public official, your work should be public, but go ahead.
So that's a struggle for some. Some people aren't confident enough to humbly brag on their work, or some people are too lazy to get their flyers out and go campaign until it's campaign time. They don't want to inform you in the off years. So they got to wear that. Like you said, some are behind the scenes, some are very vocal and visible, some are on social media every day, some are not, But I want voters to really think about, if you're not looking at their voting record, if you're not looking at the money they've brought into the district and who they got it to, whether it's meaningful programs that affect the lives of you and your neighbors, then you're probably on some superficial bullshit. And it's cool because everybody has the right. That's why I'm saying I'm glad you said it out loud, because I've seen our growth in terms of being, more discerning about who we vote for.
Yep.
But we need to do that community wide, and we'll talk more about that when we get into the DA's race and the bullshit that happened at the city council level.
We're
today.
about to get into that in a minute. And Lord have mercy, I don't know which one to go to first. The reason that
What the people
happened
say?
in
What the
city
people
council-
saying in the comments? Which
So
one
in
they
the
want?
comments, let us know if you want us to go to city
I
council.
can't see the comments, y'all. It's just James. So if he ain't put your comment up and we ain't talking about it, it's James's fault.
Hold on. Let me show you a couple of comments, sir. Where is Paula? Because Paula is now your new. Paula remembers when me and Russell got into it it was on social media. Hold on. I'm trying to find. Thank you, Carlos, for pointing out the sexism in politics. And I seen something else there about Carlos. So they are commenting. So in the comments now, that Curtis, it's good to see you in here, brother. Curtis Rollins
Hell
said the
yeah.
DA race.
Okay.
And so I just, it is really real that I had to embrace that, Carlos, because I'm like, damn, like, and a couple of these races I stayed out of because of relationships. And so I had to also own, okay, relationship, or do you make, something public based on who you think is going to get the most stuff done for our community. And it's just been an interesting process.
Yeah.
So
some people vote on connections, though. That person shows up at my cookout. That person's going to get me a job. I think this person's going to win, and I want to stand next to a winner, so I'm going with them. There's all kinds of reasons people vote.
It's a lot. It's a lot. And we would hope that at least 85% is from a place of, pureness and what's good for the community.
You would hope.
We would hope. And
You would hope. There you go, speaking that French again. You would hope. I know it ain't 85%. We ain't even voting at an 85% level. Let's do that first.
Oh, all right. So Curtis said he's the only one that jumped in. He said the DA's race, and so one vote. Let's talk about the DA's race. And
I
then
count Curtis's vote as 2 votes automatic. So let's go.
Listen, okay. I was more talking about the one vote here. Back in they're listen. There's so much that we're going to get ready to get into. So the DA's race. If you don't know, city councilor Carlos, Lord have mercy. There
we go. Black people love to just interchange Latino names. There we go.
No, I'm talking to Carlos, so that's what happened. But
yeah,
you better be glad I didn't say.
If you was talking, you wouldn't have confused me with Michael Flaherty. Your mother. Go ahead, man. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's
pissing
not
me off.
Did you see Mike's face?
I sure did. I'm gonna watch it again tonight before I go to sleep. Shit.
Yo, I had somebody here that's not really all into politics. We sat and watched that city council hearing like it was a goddamn movie. There was points where he was looking at me like he knew that I was sitting there like, oh my God. All right, so don't forget tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Candidate for DA Ricardo Arroyo will be with us to talk about a lot. All right, so the DA's race. Ricardo got in early on. We know that Governor Baker appointed Kevin Hayden. There was some speculation that Governor Baker wanted someone that was going to serve in that role on an interim basis and not run for office. That was, again, some sort of this hearsay. I don't know if you heard the same. And then there was I'll say for me and for many, and apparently what happened in city council today, among a lot of activists, there was a concern that Kevin Hayden would disrupt. You were a part of, and a lot of work that went into the difference the DA makes in 2018. And across the country, we had a minimum of, I know, 3, but I want to say as many as 6, but then maybe 18 and maybe 22 or 21, that we got some very more equitable, more folks that are more favorable to equity in the justice system.
Go ahead, use your word progressive. Throw it out there. Go ahead. You know you want to use it. Progressive.
We got some more progressive attorneys in office. And so some of the now, let me be very honest, and Kevin may not remember this. I had issues with Kevin almost 12, 15 years ago when he was somewhat trainee in ADA. And so I already had some longevity context as a former youth worker, that when we would show up at court with our young people back when they was having chins and stuff, and Kevin was doing some stuff in the beginning, I remember a couple of interactions with him, and it wasn't favorable toward my young people. And so I'll own again that there's a context there. But
I'm with you. Now that one I'm with you, because I don't like DAs. I don't like ADAs. I'm like Black Rob when it comes to that shit. They're not woe. They're part of a system that everybody knows predominantly locks up black and brown and poor people. So with that being said, I'm fully biased against the district attorneys and ADAs and how they function. So,
absolutely. So, and I'm glad we're being honest and because so folks can know that we're coming from a point of authenticity, even if it is not favorable toward the person that we're talking about. And so, you know, we see now evidence, and I wasn't able to find it on, but I remember seeing, and I don't want to cite it. I'll just say that we need to be sure that what we're familiar with as far as asset forfeiture, and you can go into some other stuff, but Dan Conley didn't do a lot of things right. One thing that Dan Conley did was he took asset forfeiture and he did put a lot of it back into black and brown communities. There's some concerns around some things that I'm hearing about Kevin with asset forfeiture. We had Bobby Constantino on, the whole debacle around that unit that was looking at the impact and the recidivism rate around if you did not charge them for that list of 15, if there was a real impact. There was a whole project and a partnership that it was being, I don't want to say Mount Ida, there was some sort of academic partnership that was being done. And then that sort of got disrupted, even though they still wound up putting out a report. And so there are some concerns that I have about Kevin. And then with, well, let's talk about Kevin and then we'll get into Ricardo.
So let's talk about Kevin as a candidate, as a you could talk about him as a candidate, you could talk about him as a district attorney, but I'm going to go back a little bit further because I think what I call bullshit that I've been seeing, and we'll go deeper into it. But you know, in his recent statements, he's talked a lot about protecting victims and protecting people, right? But I just want people, a lot of people don't know this because a lot of people just don't know this. Before he was appointed by Governor Baker, he was the chair of the Sex Offender Registry Board. The Sex Offender Registry Board is responsible for keeping track of the registration of sex offenders, people that are convicted of heinous crimes against men, women, and children, predominantly women and children. Under his leadership, I believe they lost track of over 1,300 registered sex offenders. They don't have a current address on them. There's state statutes about being able to inform neighbors about where they are, because some of this stuff is habitual. And so I right off the rip, I don't understand how you claim to be for the protecting of victims as a district attorney, the top law enforcement person in a county, yet you lost 1,300 people who have been convicted of victimizing women and children. Let's start there, right? So that to me speaks to his management capacity. Can he manage a larger office, a more mobile office of DA in and out day-to-day work with a caseload if he can't keep track of a registration system?
Can I give you another perspective away from management, but under the vein of victim and where we're getting ready to go to? We've always centered and talked about, the victims. We're going to have some more commentary about that as well, because there are different types of victimizations when we talk about accusations of sexual assault. It can be twofold. We'll get into that later. And so the other thing is, if you're about victims, though you probably could not pull off a full-fledged investigation. I mean, you could say, hey, I need you to do what you need to do in 10 days. You got the 11th day to get me a report and then whatever. But away from all of the stuff that's going on, with the Globe, and they're part of it, and the politics around the DA's race and all the over-criminalization of this brown man, there was some disingenuousness somewhere between his office and the police department. And if it was his office, still has purview.
I mean, when you say disingenuous, you mean some motherfucker out there is lying.
Somebody is lying around where the unredacted police report came from. And so I don't want to get it too far into that. But my thing is,
let's jump into that, because even as a candidate, I'm a political consultant. My logo is right up there in the top right corner. So I advise candidates all the time on what they should do and what they shouldn't do. Right. So here there is a leak. Let's talk about facts. I don't want to give anybody any opinions right now. Someone leaked an unredacted file. Someone broke state law. It is illegal to release the names of victims of sexual assault. Okay? Someone leaked it. The only two departments that could leak it would be the Boston Police Department or the District Attorney's Office. Now, Mayor Wu had the decency, truthful or not, I don't know. I don't work in that building, but at least she came on Java with Jimmy and she said, last night we stayed up all night and did an audit to make sure the leak didn't come from our shop, because that's the shop she's responsible for. And as a candidate, not as a mayor, as a candidate, that's what the fuck you're supposed to say. True or not, that's what you're supposed to say. The camera shifts to this motherfucker over here, the DA, who's the top law enforcement person who enforces state law. And if I'm advising him, thank God I'm not. I never would. Yeah, I think he's, Cam Charbonnet and some campaign managers and some other people are advising him. If I was advising him, though, I would have said, you better say the same thing, because you're the top. It's your responsibility, whether it came from your shop or the BPD, to investigate it. Either way, if you're really about protecting victims, even if it came out of your shop, it was some punk ass ADA downstairs snuck the file out in their briefcase and ran home and shared it with the PI, and the PI contacted them and shared it with the Globe. It's still your job to at least investigate it. Now, if you ain't gonna investigate it, goddamn, have the decency to claim you're gonna investigate it. You haven't heard him say that since this shit broke.
All he says is, I'm not connected and I don't know.
He came with the shaggy shit. It wasn't me.
Listen, this is this. So again, I can't say this enough. That I'll and hear me when I say we're centering women in this, and we're going to get into that, because I said something a few minutes ago that there can be some injustices and there can be some trauma that is twofold when it comes to allegations of sexual abuse. And so we can center women and believe them, and also not overlook the fact that they're okay. So we talked about Kevin. We're kind of going into Ricardo now. You can also call out the fact that some of these white counselors seized the first and immediate opportunity to demonstrate the repercussions of the overcriminalization of Black and brown men.
No doubt.
There was such a Flynn, and who was the other one?
Murphy and Baker.
Murphy was the first one that issued some 5-6 damn paragraph
call for his resignation.
Call for his resignation and whatnot. Truth of the matter is, I think the team. Well, anyway, and so I had to. Now and I said this to you as a woman, and she put in the story about her daughters and her son and stuff like that, or her children or whatever. There is, for me, understanding that as a woman, you would sort of kind of expedite taking that stance. However, because of some of my awareness and what I've said and belief that she's cut from the same cloth of Baker and a couple of other folks and the racists over there that were in the City Hall chambers today, it just, for me, was a trigger of, really? Are you just that quick? And so go ahead, because I see
I'm glad you came with that, because let's stay. I'm gonna try to keep it linear, right? As we're talking about victims, and I'm not talking about specific victims. I'm talking about victims in general.
Period.
Right? Period. So if someone has broken a law, if you believe someone has broken a law and you're about protecting victims, but you're not calling for the person that exposed them illegally to investigate it.
Well, it re-victimizes them, because this was sort of a dead duck.
Right. If you and your supporters are using it to score political points, you're not about the victims, whether you believe that there are victims in this case, even though the due process that people always want to afford, say that they afford in America has already run its process 17 years ago. You know, and we can go deeper into that. I just don't believe, I don't believe the people that are chanting "Believe Women" because their message is not consistent. They're not centering women. They're not. We're not talking about how to speak to young men and women about how they date, about rape culture. They're using it as grandstanding, and there's a difference between political grandstanding and actually being about the work of protecting women and protecting children, and even protecting men from domestic and sexual assault. Right? So that's I basically I'm calling bullshit. I don't believe it. And people might think, you know, well, Carlos, I've been convicted, falsely accused, wrongfully convicted, still punished. So, you know, at this point, I don't give a fuck whether you believe me or not. I've already paid a debt that I didn't even need to pay, but it's paid. So still, they use that when people are on Twitter and in social media and talking shit. They're using it as a jab, right? They're not using it as what can we do to protect women. So, you know, I don't buy it. Like they have it, and I'm trying to set. I don't want to center
What's after
myself.
dark?
So
Oh, okay, okay.
no, I don't want to center myself. Like, you know, this shit is traumatic to me too. Like it triggers me too. So I want to be careful not to put myself in it to make it too personal.
Yes, sir.
But I know the difference between even me who has gone through it. There's a difference between me talking about my case, and there's a difference between when I show up at a school or after school program or talk to the fellas in the neighborhood about, yo, the things we thought were cool 15, 20 years ago are not cool. The things that I learned about anger management or our belief system about thinking women are a weaker gender, even language like throw like a
Reference
girl
points,
is
yep.
not appropriate. You know, me calling Jane Doe and these organizations and saying, hey, if I can be helpful, let me know. There's not a lot of room for that conversation. A lot of people have rejected that conversation. We're at the point where we just want to point to a bad guy like Scarface and say, hey, that's the bad guy. You know, and it doesn't serve the victims, the real victims of real sexual assault and domestic violence,
Yep.
and it doesn't prevent future victims if we're not going to talk about the reality and the gray areas that people get lost in. So I just wanted to impart that so that we're not losing that message as we talk about the political ramifications of it. That shit is totally different from the actual things we need to be saying to boys and men about domestic violence and sexual assault. So I just wanted to throw that in there because I appreciate you centering the real issue. But the way Erin Murphy and Frank Baker and their supporters and even Kevin Hayden are playing it is different than that, right? For you to leak this illegally 2 weeks before election day. Come on.
There's
Like,
so much, Carlos, and I mean, you know, DA is a different level. I really just think, and we can get ready to get into the city council conversation as well.
let's frame it though, because the DA, because this shit didn't happen. This shit didn't happen because he ran for city council.
In 2 times, he's
right?
in his second term, right?
Right. This shit happened because the DA's seat is different than all these other seats. Right?
How so? And then what is the number one organization that has its roots in finding slaves, and the oldest one? I'm sorry.
You already know it's police departments. Now, what angers the shit out of me is we seem to understand how important these positions are when it's in Minnesota and Minneapolis and California and Florida. Oh, this person should get prosecuted. I can't believe they let the police get a free ride. I can't believe they didn't get indicted. I can't believe they didn't get investigated. We all up in arms and we marching from Franklin Park and all the way down to City Hall on a fucking Sunday when the building is closed. Sis, boom, rah, boom, bah. But when you have a sitting DA who takes a campaign donation from police officers and their lawyers who are under investigation or not under investigation, even though they've possibly committed an offense where they pull a gun on a black man, the same shit that you was marching to City Hall at. When they do it in your town, we lose sight of the importance of what the district attorney means. This seat is different from a city councilor seat. This seat decides what police can testify, who can be charged as a minor or an adult. This is the machine that makes mass incarceration. This is the machine. This is the major engine for for the war on drugs. This is the machine that has been locking black men and Latino men and breaking up families for generations. But now all of a sudden we blind and like, well, now it becomes political fodder. These people will fight. They will do some of the dirtiest shit to protect their way of life. If, and it's not an endorsement, but Ricardo made it clear, as Rachel Rollins did before him, if you are a police officer that is known to lie, you can't testify in court because you're a fucking liar.
Yep.
You know what that means? Not only can you not testify in court and bring no cases in, you also can't collect that check for overtime every time you show up there. So you can't get over that 75K base pay. You can't get up to 175,000 because you in court because you've been running down on people and making up shit, a fake resisting arrest or all these shits that you want to overcharge people for. That's what is in this race. Not some shit that you think happened 17 years ago that was investigated and closed out. That's not what's at stake. What's at stake is for the next 4 years, poor white people, black people, and Latinos will go through a system that either and I don't like DA's fucking period, but one has made it clear that he's a lot more empathetic about immigration, about youth offenders, about a do not prosecute list, about cops that are lying and can't testify, and that upsets their way of life since they were founded in 1619.
So it comes down to money. If you really think it,
and power.
And power, because what's being put at risk now for the oldest racist cat slave organization.
And here's a PSA for you. That's what the fuck politics is about. Money and power. If you ain't in it for either one of those, get the fuck out.
And it don't have to be personal. You can be in it for money and power for the community, the Robin Hood.
That's what I was alluding to. Thank you for clarifying that, because it's not for your personal power and the money you make. You ain't getting rich, doing
That's what it's supposed to be about. But everybody now is on these. Oh, Jesus. Everybody's now on these personal damn high horses and soapboxes about their next step. One, if you're going to have a next step, be honest with us. I want to take the impact and the expansion of my work and policy familiarity to a national level. Fine. Don't sit up here and use us. And so the other, Carlos, I'm sorry. The other piece is that, and this gets into some of the council piece, is that we saw in Charleston, and we're seeing across the country through He Who Used to Occupy, that amplified what we known since 1619, is that the conditioning, the systemic design to keep feet and knees on our neck is becoming at risk. Not only are the police concerned about Ricardo, but if you look at what's going on with the city council and what happened today, and Tanya Fernandez called it out, that there's this split. And again, not all, but it was a generalization. They're scared. And they're coming out of all type of desperation and pulling all type of BS and disingenuousness out, because they know that the old days and ways of old Boston and racism, their days are numbered. Is it 10 days? Is it 2 years? No. But they're what? Go ahead.
No, I'm with you. I think what we saw at the city council level today, one, it was the fact that they brought that much of electoral politics into their chamber. They weren't even thinking about protecting the integrity of their body. Like, who today takes the Boston City Council serious after what you just saw today, right? The president lost control of it, allows a fist fight to break out because he wouldn't clear the chamber. I've seen city council presidents throw children who hold signs in silence asking for jobs out of the chamber, but you ain't going to throw out people who can't control their impulses and keep shouting shit out. But what you saw was a microcosm of society. What you saw was a smaller scaled down version of society. You had black women carrying the mantle and shouting out racism as it presented itself in the form of a 5 foot tall bigot named Frank Baker, right? Who opened up his statements with a lie about the work that he did around Mass and Cass. And the reason why I know it was a lie because he was claiming credit for some of the shit that I've actually done, and I've done with Domingos and other resident leaders, from the taking it down to the bleachers. So he opens up with a lie. So now, as a man, you're a liar. And in his coded language around calling people predators,
the field, the killing field,
right? His rationale for subpoenaing these records and acting like it was about protecting women, when it was really about railroading and criminalizing Ricardo.
And can we agree?
And the snake shit about it was, this is a man who has a conviction on his record, who previously lied and said he didn't have one until he was outed for possession of drugs with an intent to distribute. So whatever question you have, and I'm not talking about personal or electoral politics. I'm talking about as a politician on an elected body, right? There's rules that govern that fucking body. So if you are going to call into question a character of a boy from 17 years ago, and you think that's valid to today, then surely your character when you were 25 and selling drugs when it was illegal should be called into character. So that kind of duplicitousness, that snake shit that he was doing, is bullshit. And there's so many quotes that point to it that he just, whether he did it for Kevin Hayden because he's backing Kevin Hayden, whether he did it because he's a bigot and a racist, whether it's a combination of the two, whether it's a Napoleon complex, whatever the fuck it is. So that was the beginning of the microcosm. And then who co-signs it? Here comes a white woman in the form of Erin Murphy to co-sign it. What you've seen in history before. And when that happens, what happens next? It usually happens in society. Women of color stand up and say, hey, whoa with the bullshit. Like, this is not fair based on the rules that you people set up. This is not even fair, as Councilor Laura and Councilor Anderson spoke to. But then you take it a level further, the good white people that MLK spoke about, the moderate middle. When you looked at the other white counselors sitting on the body, whether it was Flaherty, whether it was Bach, whether it was Reardon, they was quieter than two mosquitoes fucking. They was quieter than church mice pissing on cotton. Not a word, because them good white people always get quiet when it's time to come to the rescue. When they're supposed to be allies, they what's that Homer meme when they just slide off into the bushes in the back. and I'm curious as to, I would have liked to, I didn't want him to be politicized in it, but I would have liked to hear from the black man on the council, at least as it pertained to the council business.
Listen, he could have said something. I'm going to be perfect. I'm going to do my best, because we got enough black and brown men on the council. But and Brian is new.
We have enough. We have two.
No, did I say enough? I didn't say no. Yeah. By enough, we got enough who are being prosecuted. Or let me finish that statement. They're going through enough as the black and brown men on the council. So I don't want to add anything with Brian, but I agree with you. It would have been and pull in. Listen, this is After Dark. Let's keep it 100. You're one of our commissioners. You're well connected in the community. Take that influence, and we can protect and not offend women and allegations. And we got to name that the children make allegations, and so do some men. And still call out, to some extent, in a hospitable, as you refer to, a certain statement sort of manner, the injustice and the over-criminalization and the rush, I won't say to judgment, but the rush to react to something that through the courts and the system, there was a judgment, there was no criminal charges, and then also without addressing and these folks that want Ricardo out are not acknowledging anything of the disingenuousness with the retired police officer that called one of the women and all this other stuff. And at some point,
because it's bullshit, and that's my point. They don't give a fuck about women or children in the manner that they act like they do. Right. They never said anything. For the Patrolmen's Association, all these police associations to talk shit about Ricardo Arroyo, when within their own ranks they have police as a trade, as a profession, never mind just Boston, has the highest rates of domestic violence than any other profession in the fucking world, right? And their records are sealed. They get to do the shit, stay on the force, and seal their records. So I don't want to hear from the BPPA, the Superior Federation. I call bullshit. But let me say something that's going to be controversial. The idea of suspending logic and using a hashtag or a belief of believe women is dangerous. And I'm fully aware of the backlash that I will catch for it, especially someone who I know was wrongly convicted of domestic violence. But let me explain why. Men lie, women lie. That's a fact. If anybody wants to deny that, you're living in la la land. Believe women is what got Emmett Till killed. Believe women is what got Emmett Till beaten unrecognizably, dumped in a river, and killed. And it's motherfuckers like Frank Baker who would have been leading the charge in the lynch mob when they used language like, don't let a predator roam. Now,
Ooh, Carlos.
80 years later, when this woman who you believed without looking at facts, without due process, recants her story, then what?
Carlos, I've been privately saying, and I think I said it on the show the other day, there have been cases that years later, this case, one of the longest we heard about, 87 to 70, 80 something years later, we're finding out that it wasn't the truth. And if at any point, sir, you need to duck or tell me go full screen because I know that this subject is sensitive for you.
No, I'm good. I'm good because Emmett Till is only one of tens of thousands.
We got recents where it's come out where the women has confessed that they lied. And then listen, I don't want to get too deep into this, but then we also know that at the age in which these allegations were being made is in one middle school. There's a lot that goes on.
It's high school, right? It's high school,
middle school,
right?
And so it you know what I mean.
But let me just pause because I want to keep it balanced. I understand.
Wait, hold on. Heidi said believe white women.
See now here we go. And you know, I've seen a couple know-it-alls on social media say, oh, you know, I see y'all ain't standing with black and brown women when they victims. The race of the women that allegedly made these accusations, we don't even know. So, you know, we're speculating. But
yes,
I want to be clear to the men that are listening, because I don't want men to take that soundbite and just run away with that shit and think it's an excuse to ignore what the real issue is.
To be fair to you, you've been balanced. The first thing you
talk. Well, I'm gonna balance out even more because men are the #1 perpetrators of domestic violence because we've been raised on some fucked up shit to think that we're entitled to dominate everybody, whether it's you know. So the idea is for years, women have gone unbelieved and have had to deal with misogyny and sexism. So I understand where the sentiment comes from. It's sort of like defund the police. Like, you know, you ain't trying to bankrupt the police. You're just trying to take a little bit of resources away from them. You know, however, people need to make sure that we are not abandoning facts for beliefs
and logic to some extent.
And logic and evidence and due process. And my problem with community is we have to draw a line, at least for ourselves. Like we know that the court system is fallible. You've watched on video as a child, or depending on your age, cops beat somebody and then get off. And you thought, oh, the court system is fucked up. We don't get no justice. As a matter of fact, the cliche is just us. But when it's convenient, when you feel a certain way about somebody, or you feel in a certain way about yourself, and things go south, for a man or whoever that person is that's going through the court system, you pick and choose like, oh no, now I know it. I think they got it right. You ain't never read a case file. You ain't never sat in court. You didn't listen to the details. You're just making an emotional decision. That doesn't help men or women. That doesn't prevent boys and men from committing these acts. That doesn't prevent women from lying about it and taking the attention away from women who are real and women and their children who are real victims. And the more we politicize this shit and make it a game, the more women that are going to suffer because of it.
Because
and that's fucked up.
And the scrutiny, now we're not scrutinizing, but there is a factor that when, God forbid, and Heidi put a comment in here that said, also, I think sooner or later it will be proven that some women lied. And maybe not just in this case, but we got cases right now where
we know
out where the women has, and you know, from the father.
Google it. I mean, if you care, all you gotta do is Google it. I've seen dozens of them. I've talked to women, the women who are honest. People have friends and family members who have made things up because they've been bitter about something. And it's not the majority. It's like 2%. I don't know what the fucking percentage is. I don't want to put a percentage on it, but we know that it's not 100% factual. And we have this weird relationship with the justice system that an accusation now is enough, or we have this weird relationship that we want to believe it sometimes based on how we feel, and that's not justice either. That's just punishment to make ourselves feel good, and that's just doing what they've been doing to us. That's not a solution to our ills. It's exactly, people lie, period. And so I don't know the facts of it. I didn't go to high school with Ricardo. What I know is he hasn't committed, as far as he hasn't been charged with any crime then or now as a city councilor.
As Julia or somebody called out today, or as a city council.
Councilor Laura said it today. And same thing for Frank Baker, right? And I'm not setting a separate set of rules for blacks and Latinos. We don't get a free pass, obviously. Frank Baker today is not who he was when he was out hustling and selling weed, right? So why are you bringing it up for a Latino and trying to stick this label on him, but you won't stick it on yourself? That's that bullshit. So what you saw in the city council today, and then Ed Flynn, as his colleagues, women are talking about receiving death threats on their public municipal numbers. When Councilor Laura says, and like you, I don't even like Councilor Laura because of some shit she said she did to me. Tried to over criminalize me when it was cool to do so. But with that said, it doesn't take away the truth from what she said today. She went to the council president and said, Councilor Murphy's sister, her racism, which is on full display on Twitter every single day. She manages 4 or 5 different Twitter accounts, calling people rapists, calling Mayor Wu communist, attacking everybody she can from Obama. Since Obama ran for president, she's been on some Puma Pack shit. You can Google it for yourself. Google Puma Pack, Dara Murphy, sister of Aaron Murphy. When they went to the president and said, can you ask our colleague to ask her sister to disavow these comments publicly or ask her sister to stop? And Aaron Murphy's response to the council president is no. Then you're no longer protecting women. You're not even protecting your colleagues or the body. And that you've drawn a line in the sand and made it clear where you stand from. Now, some people say, well, everybody's their own individual. Listen, if Aaron Murphy's sister is a vibrant fucking racist,
she could denounce it.
What I'm saying is an apple tree can only make apples. Her sister had to learn that from somewhere. Don't tell me that they polar opposite twins. An apple tree, their parents can only make fucking apples. So you from the same tree. And the fact that you won't denounce it publicly speaks volumes. But here is our community letting her show up at forums, taking pictures and shit like everything is gravy. She had a community of color forum tonight. She has the right to do that because she's a city councilor at large. But goddamn, like, is that what we accept for our own? Is that the kind of pandering that we get? I didn't see Thaddeus's comment. I missed it.
Because Thaddeus has taken us back, and he's been, Thaddeus is one of the most balanced, and he'll challenge me even when he's doing it. We agree, and he'll just ask me something just to make my frame of thought go in a different place and not be isolated. Not saying that we're doing that. So what he's saying is, can she believe that's what happened and it be her truth and not a lie? And so I guess the lie is where, because it could be, if she believes that happened,
Well, keep that up because I want to make sure I understand this right. Can she? Who is the she? Erin Murphy? Can she believe?
I think he's referring maybe to one of the women because sometimes as you know, these comments are delayed like a couple of minutes.
Okay.
Thaddeus, can you clarify what she you're referring to? Because to go back until he does that, I'll take this down. Counselor Murphy and even Ed Flynn, Counselor Murphy can denounce her sister, and Ed Flynn needs to figure out a way. He's so quick to snatch Ricardo's thing over allegations.
Why? So if he does that, let's say he got the power to do that. As a city council president, you can remove a motherfucker from any committee at any time you want.
How are you over public health and you won't tell your sister to back the hell up from somebody who's being traumatized?
But here's what I'm saying: if it's okay to strip the committee chairs from Ricardo Arroyo because of unfounded allegations that were investigated 17 years ago, wouldn't it be fair and balanced and equitable, all these tags that everybody loves to speak about, to strip Frank Baker of his for illegally dealing drugs and being convicted of it when he was 25?
Convicted. Ricardo, right, wrong, indifferent. There we go back to the point. We want to believe due process when it's convenient. We want to believe the courts and fuss at the courts when it's. Listen, there's so much. Go ahead.
I think of a fictional character, Marlo Stanfield's quote in The Wire. People want it one way, but it's the other way.
All right, so we about to go. Oh boy. So Yahira, this is a touchy subject because I made reference to it earlier. And so what Yahira is saying, I still can't believe Councilor Erin Murphy did a park cleanup at Clifford Park, and Domingo Starosa has been asking for help from electeds of color to receive no support. So I'm going to try to answer this first and not take any of your talking points.
Go ahead, have at it.
About, so you can clarify it even deeper. So a couple of things here. One is, and shout out to Rufsi Ujion, who basically wasn't being shady, but what she basically said was, I've been trying to work behind the scenes on some policy. While it was good for Erin Murphy, who was over public health, that in August, 8 months into her first tenure, and the hearing that she's doing now, calling for 8 months into as the head of the Committee of Public Health, it's just quite interesting that, you know, there's sort of this celebratory piece of her coming at the park. I think she referred to it in the hearing today about she had the Narcan or somebody. I don't know if it was at Clifford Park. And so we cannot allow that, you know, is it good that, you know, she came out? First of all, Carlos, you pick up from here because there's the whole hazmat thing. Like, it is not, let's keep it 100. We could talk about this from Ayanna all the way down to, you know, Erin Murphy and the activists and what roles are.
I'll separate my feelings on it from yours. I've been out at the park with Mingos. I've talked to residents. I've been to the meetings. I've got media attention. I've talked to Mayor Walsh, who was the recovery mayor, who was supposed to do something, who would say some shit to me like, "Oh, we gotta. I'll make sure we leave the lights on," as if that's gonna deter heroin addicts in the middle of the night. You know what I'm saying? So I've been there. I actually started working on that issue in 2011 with then Senator Jack Hart and then State Representative Nick Collins. That's how far back I go with methadone mile. All right. So I would be okay with Erin Murphy showing up as an at-large counselor because she represents the district. But I can see the fact that she brought media in tow and she brought fucking Kevin Hayden with her in the midst of a campaign. Right? And like you said, 8 months into her purview.
Wait a minute, hold on. She brought Kevin Hayden with her?
Kevin Hayden was there and made sure he got camera time on Fox 25.
Oh, so let's put a little also thing, and this is my brother, and I maybe won't say his name because this is my brother, but Erin Murphy got to pick who the preacher was that opened up the city council prayer.
Yeah, they rotate. They all get a chance to pick.
I need for you. I'll tell you offline. The person that did the prayer works for Kevin Hayden.
So when I see it politicized now, Councilor Lucienne working behind the scenes, I get it, but it's also like we talked about earlier in the show. it's incumbent upon her to make sure she's communicating that to the resident leaders and the residents of that community, which I think she has failed to do. So when you tweet about it, it does come off as a little shady because you haven't communicated to those that you claim to be serving, right? That's the part that the politicians keep missing. You have to inform people of your work. It's a relationship. It's not just you be able to say, I made a call. You know what I'm saying? Anissa Asabi George used to do the same shit. Or I doubled the Sharps team from 2 to 4. Whoop-de-fucking-do.
I thought Frank Baker started that in District 3. Sorry.
Yeah, sure he did. The other piece of it is, I've been to the park. I have friends who have children that play in that playground. I've known Domingo since I was 20 years old. I love the fact that what they do and how they persevered. I'll tell you the truth. I'm not picking up no fucking needles. I'm not picking up any human shit either. Whether I'm elected or unelected. That is not my job. That's not what they were elected to do. Now, shout out to you if you do it. I don't mean that to be diminishing to the efforts of those that do it, but I'm not hazmat trained. They didn't provide me with gloves that are puncture proof or steel toe boots to be out there doing that shit. And look what happened when you came out there unprepared. One of Kevin Hayden's guys got poked in the foot because he came out there in some soft ass soled shoes. And gets poked by a needle. Better him than a child from the neighborhood.
I said the same, but God, we're praying for him. He doesn't deserve that. But a child is just a little bit different. But
right. So now, what stopped Erin Murphy from calling that hearing when she walked in the door, when she was named chair? What, she didn't know? She didn't know what was going on. You said it was her second time running for city council. Mass and Cass been there since 2011. It's been blown up since 2014 when the bridge came down. So if we're gonna keep it 100, it is what it is. They're using this shit as political fodder. Now, shame on the black elected officials, the elected officials of color who claim to be about equity but don't come out here. And I'm gonna include Mayor Wu, who was a city councilor when the shit started, who now has full control over the efforts put there, and she don't even have the decency, right? First of all, I know she wouldn't let her kids play in that fucking park. All right, we talk about equity as a buzzword, but she wouldn't put her kids in that park. But this woman, as a manager, as a CEO of the city, has the power to say to the supervisor of public works and parks to say, listen, I need that park cleaned every day, all day. And then call her police commissioner and say, I need that park a drug-free fucking zone. If a addict walks into that park, you walk their ass back out of the park immediately. You got them stationed down there making overtime anyway.
But they're sitting in the cars and not engaging. They're just.
But that's management. That falls on Wu. That's management. If you just gonna trust, I always tell people, shout out to Jose Marroquin, who when I was in private sector taught me to inspect what I expect. So if you're gonna say clean the park and you do it in the morning and you do it in the evening, but the Pop Warner coach tells you I still find needles and shit in the afternoon,
it's not enough.
It's obvious that it's not enough. You add more resources. Now, if your supervisor and your crew is not getting it done, then it's still a management issue. Now, do I have to add more resources, or do I have to get a different supervisor and a different manager to do the fucking job? It's not difficult. It's not rocket science. They just don't give a fuck about our communities. And we keep playing this game of personality and who's paying us attention and celebrity. And meanwhile, the kids is losing. The neighborhood is losing and has been losing for a decade. And then we wonder why people don't want to get involved in politics, because they keep bullshitting us. And we keep, and on the flip converse side of it, we keep allowing them to bullshit us.
So it's interesting. I'm getting a text. So not to take away from what you're saying, but folks are just watching and they can't comment publicly for various reasons. But to your point about what should have been done and the management,
you're getting those texts from city workers.
I won't say city, but
they used to do that to me too. Like, yo, Carlos, chill out, man. Why you causing all this heat, man? Why you making us look bad, bro? You supposed to just I'm supposed to go along to get along while there's heroin and piles of shit in the park in the neighborhood that I grew up in and used to represent? Hell no. Hell fucking no.
I want to go to this and then to your point. So WGBH asked me the other day. They was like, yo, you asked the mayor about Mass and Cass. Are you satisfied? And I said, to some extent, I was satisfied with the answer because the answer she gave just kind of sort of named all the issues, and
You
then they
like
were
her.
going to get a
You
little
have a
more.
crush on her. You like her.
I don't like her.
You're
First
a
of all,
fan
that's
of
the wrong
hers though.
tree.
No, but I'm saying you're a fan of her. I don't mean like
Yeah.
romantically. I mean you like her. Like you're biased.
Everybody knows. I won't say biased because publicly I may seem biased, but if some of the private communication is she would probably not agree. And so what I'll say there is they said I was satisfied with their answer because what she did was just say some of the stuff that you said, name the issues. What I said was the community is still dissatisfied because all the stuff that we know that is going on down there. And someone said to me the other day, and was it you I was talking to? Or I don't remember who I was talking to. And they said,
all that gossiping you doing.
It ain't no gossiping.
You lost track.
There is no answer. There is no answer.
There's no answer for which part?
For Mass and Cass.
There's no okay. That's not
believe
true.
That there is.
That's not true.
That there is.
Right. So, this is what they make you believe, right? First, let's all be honest. The majority of us have been trained since we were kids not to give a fuck about homeless people. We think that homeless people did something fucked up in their life to deserve to be homeless, and that's why we can look the other way and walk past their ass, whether they're asking for $1, something to eat, whatever. That's number one. If motherfuckers really cared about the homeless, they would build houses and put the motherfuckers in it. But because it's not profitable, they don't do it. So that's number one. So recovery. Yes, recovery becomes a little bit more tricky, right? You heard the city council today argue about Section 35. Can you take people's freedom and throw them in a cage because they're addicted to drugs? There's mixed feelings about that. Meet them where they are, compassion and all that shit.
He had a iteration of that they was doing at South Bay that folks had different opinions about. So
right. So that's the opioid epidemic is born out of white doctors overprescribing opioids to mostly white people and getting them addicted, and then the influx of cheap heroin when we landed in Afghanistan. But I don't want to go to 100,000 feet level because I know people ain't ready for that shit. Right? It's the same shit they did in the 70s to black and poor white people. They're doing again now. But that's neither here nor there. You can't prevent people from getting high when you're leaving them out in the street, when you're depriving them of the things that humans need to be healthy. However, what you can fucking prevent, what we know, what is prevented all the time, you can mitigate what's happening in the park.
You can mitigate what's happening in the park, and I would say overall Mass and Cass. The only thing that concerns me is if they barriered, everything down there, the migration of concentration of the folks would lead to Clifford, would lead to other parts. Like there's Mass and Cassness in Nubian Square.
But this is the trick. This is how they make it seem like, you better live with this, because if you don't live with this, you're gonna get this. No. When people riot, right? When poor Black and Latino communities riot, they're allowed to burn down property in the ghettos,
in their neighborhoods, which is so.
But there's a line drawn in the sand. In Boston, where everybody knows where the lines are, right? You can't pass a certain line on Mass Ave. You can't pass a certain line on Columbus Ave. You can't pass a certain line in Mattapan once you cross in the middle. Everybody knows where the lines are, where the cops show up like, oh, it's almost on some sundown shit. So they know how to keep the shit from migrating into their communities. And they leave us with the choice of, either you got to let us have this space of your community to allow this to happen, or it's going to come deeper in your community. It already migrated. I ran on the campaign in 2011 and 9 about cleaning up Blue Hill Avenue, and there was some progress made. But now with Mass and Cass, when women who are addicted to drugs need to get money, they're back to Blue Hill Avenue from Dudley Street to Grove Hall, serving Johns, mainly white men from outside of Boston.
And we're naming outside of Boston a good majority. And Carlos, they can get. So I do believe that there's answers, and we've been talking about this for years. Governor Baker, he ain't going to. Lame duck Baker, who's not going to do it now, could have, as the governor, asked Boston police or the state police, because there's some crossover down there, for stats around the number. Let's say the top 6 city or towns, when people get arrested, they're reporting their home address. Then contact those mayors or those town what town managers or whatever they're called, their HHS or their substance abuse person. Bring them down to the state house with Michelle Wu, and as I've said before, get their happy tail in a conference room and figure this shit out from a state level. If Steve got to be in there, and county level, because the jail is down there, and also the health commission and Michelle and all. I just think that would work if like they do with the Vatican. When they got to get a decision made, they used to lock their tail up in the Vatican until they elected the Pope. I don't want to get in trouble. Have folks come knocking at my door, talk about but I think that's a solution. And we've been saying that for a couple of years. Go ahead. I see you exhaling.
All I'm saying is, before we even tackle that long social issue of drug addiction and homelessness, which clearly many of us don't give a shit about until it affects us directly, until someone's stealing off your back porch, until someone's breaking into your house or pissing on your porch, right? Before we get to that, all I've ever asked, all I think Mingos and the South End Roxbury Coalition and the neighbors is to fucking clean the park.
Minimally.
And protect the park.
Well, I did hear on the news.
So if we can't do that, if the last 4 city councilors from when Michelle Wu comes on, and she came on in 13 or 14, she was sworn in in 14. If we can't get the recovery mayor, Marty Walsh, to do it, if we can't get Michelle Wu to do it as a city councilor and now as a mayor, if we can't even get you to clean the park, what confidence do I have in you that you can deal with anything else? You pick it and choose it, and that's cool. But you letting me know, and I refer to Minister Malcolm X's ballot of the bullet. As usual, the Democrats, and I hate to give the Republicans a speaking point, and remind me, I want to talk about Kevin Hayden and Republicans before we get off. They leave our shit. The reason why I don't fuck with the Democrats anymore is they leave our shit for last. They take care of all of their progressive shit, and then they come back to us for last. They won't even clean our parks in the city and keep them free of needles and human shit. And we supposed to ride with them on all these other issues. We keep making this big tent and be inclusive and talk about diversity and equity and inclusion. We can't even get our fucking parks cleaned.
That's interesting. And I just thought about an action, Carlos. Tomorrow at 12 o'clock, can all of you put up on social media just one simple hashtag? Clean Clifford Park.
We did that too. Michelle Wu was counselor when we started heroin in the park. Save Clifford Park.
Let's keep it 100. That's where this work comes from, way back from hashtag.
Right.
Islands in Boston.
So if you saw it then as a city councilor at large, when you represented then, and you're the mayor now and you ain't done shit, you're just creating working groups of people. It's bullshit.
So let me say this, Carlos. Do you think and agree with? And I was talking with some of the folks.
Michelle ain't never coming back on Java with Jimmy. She's like, you gonna let Carlos talk about me like that?
No, she good. Listen, this is after dark, and anyway, you're gonna say I like her if I respond about this. But when we were talking about like the oh god, you just maybe missed my point. See, you messed me up. We was talking the carnival thing and the balance. And
well, let me tell you about Kevin Hayden and Republicans while you think about that, because I don't want people to miss this point. I think this is the most important point of our discussion. We talk about the criminal justice system. We talk about mass incarceration. We talk about how it's destroyed families for generations. We've talked about all that, and we've talked about it for generations. And here we are at a point where you have a clear distinction between two candidates, how they would operate in this office. Fuck the personal shit that you believe. And this is my opinion. Let me disclose this. This is my opinion.
Go ahead.
And I'm not even a voter. I can't vote for either one of these men. Okay, let me be clear. So I have no skin in the game when it comes to that. And I'm not getting a job for either one of these men. So I have no skin in the game when it comes to that. If we're gonna hoop and holler about the injustices for Trayvon Martin, for George Floyd, for mass incarceration and all these things, then we need to be aware that you have a sitting interim DA right now who is already under scrutiny for covering up an incident of racial profiling and pulling a gun on a black man by white police officers. You have a man that is being backed by Republican PACs. Now, why would a Republican PAC and police officers go so hard for one. Why would they align for a candidate? Let me think. Let me think. To continue the system that has been subjugating us for decades, and people have an opportunity on Tuesday to decide whether they can put aside their personal issues. And for me, it's an easy decision. I'm more concerned about, and this is going to sound fucked up to some people, and I get it. I got this from Star Trek when I was a kid.
I'm a Trekkie, so come on, break it down.
Okay, all right. This is what Mr. Spock said. The good of the many outweigh the good or the one or the few. I appreciate, and I hope we've done a decent job of centering women and the importance of domestic violence. But we're also talking about thousands of men and women that will go through this system over the next 4 years. And that's what's at stake, not your personal fucking feelings about who lied on a bar exam. The bar will fucking take care of itself. Do you want to continue the progress that Rachel Rollins was making? Or do you want to revert back to a system that allows cops to lie, that allows cops to continue to charge children as adults? And you can look up the facts about how Kevin Hayden has gotten back to that shit. Or do you want to support a DA who claims he's a Democrat, but Republican PACs who back Trump and others are pouring money into his campaign so he can buy TV ads? Pay attention to who your enemy is and stop underestimating these motherfuckers, because they are killing us fast and slow at the same goddamn time.
And it'll get worse over the next 4 years. I want to go back to this when he talked about women and go back to the point where Thaddeus was talking about. And so to this question that he posed to us, the women who he was clarifying when we asked about whether it was Aaron. And so he clarified and said the women who spoke to the Globe yesterday about the assault, saying he did assault her, does she deserve grace? That's her truth. And so
I'm glad that clarification right there. Let's leave that up for me for a second.
Yes, sir.
Because words matter.
Yep.
Right? Believe women is the hashtag. There were 2 women. Both allegations investigated by the police. Now let's get into the weeds of Boston politics. They'll have you believe that Felix Arroyo, the elder, the father,
was so connected,
was so powerful and connected, even though he was an enemy, a political enemy of the mayor.
Menino, yep.
That if the opportunity presented itself, that Menino wouldn't have perp walked his son if they had due cause to do so. That's number one. One of the women whose name was illegally leaked by either the Boston Police Department or the district attorney's office came forward through her lawyer and said, nah, that's not what I said. Now, do you believe her? Do you believe her then?
Do we believe that? So it's almost a believeness, for lack of better words. I won't say it's canceled out, but one comes and substantiates the facts that nothing happened. There's not the rush to judgment.
Hold on, yeah, go back, put Thaddeus' first comment up.
I just wanted to say and acknowledge that Thaddeus said that he's old and he's going to bed. But
here he got the Hood Fit event coming up. He needs to get his rest. I get it. The road to wellness. Shout out to 5K. Everybody look for the road to wellness, because that's some dope shit that Thaddeus is doing.
Absolutely.
So, like I said earlier, believe women. Blanket belief is what got Emmett Till killed. They believed her when she said it, and then some people believed her when she recanted. So one woman said, "No, I never said it was him. This is how they twisted my story, and I didn't want to be a part of this." Now the other woman, and there's some of us that know more details than others, and I'm not at liberty to go into the details. I haven't heard. I heard the Globe say that he coerced her. Now you said words matter. I'm a wordsmith. My mother drilled it into me as a kid.
Shout out to Sandy.
Coerce means that you use force. I'm against that shit every day of the week. There's no place for it, and I would denounce it as soon as it happened. But this is what I mean. We lose the gray area of what happens between teenagers. What's forceful, physical force, versus what is in the gray area of dating. right? So,
And not to oversimplify it, what some folks would call game. And what folks call game. Bro.
all I'm saying is if we're gonna speak to men and try to get them to be better people because we've been raised fucked up,
come.
then we have to do it from a place where we're not simply demonizing them, but we have to come to a place where we speak about all the gray areas and making sure that they understand how this shit plays out. So if she comes forward again and says, this is what I believe happened to me, okay, she does deserve grace. I don't believe anyone took her grace except for the motherfuckers that outed her.
Oh,
No. The Globe didn't out her because they protected her name. They didn't break the law. Listen, big corporations, no, they don't break the law because they ain't trying to get sued. Whoever gave the name to the private investigator that knocked on these women's doors and then gave those names to the Globe.
And the Globe had a decision to make.
You're right. The Globe did have a place because they did call these women.
And re-traumatize us. This text said, yep.
That's, to me, where the grace comes in, right? So it's not about denying her truth or taking any grace from her. It's our relationship to the legal system and due process. Are we going to pick and choose case by case when we believe it and when we don't believe it? She made an allegation. I'm gonna take a step on. We talking like we on the block. Word on the street is she has a close family member, maybe a sibling, then and now, who was a police officer,
who had maybe access to this unredacted,
or maybe has skin in the game around making sure that there's not a DA who,
or being pressured. Let's keep it 100,
or being pressured by higher ups to make sure that this guy who would upset our system as it stands. Now I'm going to put a caveat. I'm going to put a little disclaimer on that, asterisk. That's speculation. That's word on the street. Yep. I haven't read that. I can't substantiate that. And the Globe ain't going to let you know. And the DA's office ain't going to let you know. And BPD ain't going to let you know.
For real.
But those of us that believe in, that love the U.S. justice system, that think it's infallible,
it's a system that is.
What the fuck is reasonable doubt? If there's not enough doubt there and it's been investigated by cops, you telling me the cops investigated it? They attached emails to him today, but they said they couldn't attribute it to him. They couldn't, say that it was him that was a sender. Frank Baker tried to attach it to him. Everybody keeps trying to attach it to him. So all of a sudden, when it comes to a Latino man, the system now doesn't work well enough.
They must obviously know that Ricardo is going to go in there and really put some things back into place that Kevin.
He's made it clear. He's made it clear.
The funny thing is, and I wish I had the clip, he said right on here on camera, and I made him say it twice. So that gives me some issues around your integrity because you lied. Or let me back up.
Who are we talking about? Kevin?
Kevin. He said right here on this show, I asked him twice. I said, listen, because it was the first time I was getting texts. It was my first totally biased interview. Like, folks were texting me, talk about James, fix your face. You're just coming at him.
Listen, that was not your first totally biased interview, but go ahead with that. Go ahead with that bullshit. Go ahead. Continue.
Biased in a manner where I was coming at somebody. Oh, did you just sip on me? But no, he came on here and said he was going to perpetuate the stuff that Rachel put in place. And in the same time, Bobby is hitting me up. I'm seeing this dismantling. And then he puts that Mueller, who is a known. This is when we talk about this whole Republican connection. His second in command, is majorly Republican backed the Republicans and all that other shit.
Let's go a little deeper. The private investigator is tied to the dirty cops that put Sean Ellis away illegally for 20 years of his life.
And who he just got vindicated in a couple of years.
That's Sean Ellis.
See, so for everybody.
That's why he's a PI and not a cop. Those are the kind of guys that Ricardo would not let testify in a court so that they could no longer railroad people like Sean Ellis. That is what's at stake. So that is the DA. You can have a choice to put a DA that protects those kind of police officers, and you could have a DA that outs those kind of police officers.
And out of
Your
it.
decision. You can rest on your own feelings about how you feel about this shit. Oh, this shit is messy. Oh, this shit is messy. Yeah, this racial war we've been locked into, this civil rights war. Everybody talks about, if I was around the civil rights, I would have no cop hitting me. This is the civil rights era continued. And you have a choice to make whether you're going to move forward with a man that could correct some of these ills, or someone that you already see upholding the bullshit.
And that is really what sort of he's been doing. And just a few hires from community and all that don't mean that you're going to perpetuate
Don't mean a
the
damn thing.
P word progressive.
Don't mean a damn thing.
progressiveness
Listen,
or
the
the
signs. Let's follow the signs. Besides the Republican money, besides the bullshit he did with, not even protecting himself from a conflict of interest of taking money. Besides the fact that he hasn't even said he would investigate where the leak comes from. Walk through. Everybody in Boston knows their neighborhood. Boston natives know their neighborhoods, right? You know where the fuck you can go, where you're welcome, where your parents weren't welcome. You know. Now walk through the neighborhoods, and just like it was when Rachel Rollins was running in 18, there are certain neighborhoods that got up Kevin Hayden signs. You know what those neighborhoods are? Those are the neighborhoods that are predominantly white. Homogeneously white. White only. I don't mean like JP white. I don't mean like South End white. I mean like white Irish police officers, Whitey Bulger, white is where the signs are.
In the 70s, white. The old Boston.
And so be clear, because they can't kick me off a school committee. They keep saying Westie whites. They can't. You know what I'm saying? They've done everything to me that they can do. So they freed me. I can speak my truth, and y'all see it. You know what neighborhoods are aligned with what neighborhoods. You know who's had their foot on your neck for decades now, whether they're Menino's Hyde Park or Ray Flynn's South Boston and West Roxbury, or in South Dorchester. You know what the game is. It's time for people to wake the fuck up and pick a side and get past their own petty differences and realize that we're talking about thousands of blacks and Latinos that will go through this system, that will be incarcerated in Suffolk County House of Corrections, or worse, a state prison over the next few years, the next 4 years. And if the motherfucker gets reelected again because he's entrenched, we're talking about 8 years.
He'll wind up being another Dan Conley. How long was Dan in? 16?
16 years. So So don't be mad at Trump and all these other states and miss the opportunity when it's right here in your fucking backyard. Don't miss it.
This goes to a voter mobilization piece. So what folks have to understand is, in this time when Michelle's probably going to have her first real cycle, and I know there was some fact out there that she did not support decreasing the overtime budget. So what we have to understand is that if someone with that philosophy gets into office and continues to over criminalize through the system, through policies that they put in place, you then begin to get the data and the stats and the numbers. And so hopefully, highly unlikely, Mr. Cox would be doing this. But, at the end of the day, our past history with some of these police chiefs, it gives them the data to go to Michelle and say, hey, based on the data of the prosecutions and what's going on and whatnot, we need more cops. And so it's not just the fact
they already beaten that drum.
They're beating that drum. But then if Kevin Hayden gets in versus Ricardo Arroyo, then what happens is those numbers increase even the more. You don't have the list of 15. I'm hearing asset forfeiture is at risk. And then all of the level of transparency, and then the division and the policy that Rachel made, that if a police officer is being investigated in a shooting, that she's recusing herself and sort of have this sort of independent subcommittee set up. All of that becomes put at risk. And then we're left with 4 years of the influence of folks from the Patrolmen's Association, from the Republican Party, and all of the dirty nastiness of, all of those folks are to some extent in bed together. Frank, Aaron, the fact that Aaron brought Kevin to the park and had a preacher that is employed in Kevin's office to kick off the prayer and thing today.
Clapping on rhythm now.
I'm sorry, shit. I mean, it's frustrating, Carlos.
I'm glad you're frustrated. That was my hope for this conversation, that some people get frustrated, because I'm gonna quote Minister Malcolm again. if we keep allowing other forms of media, the Boston Globe, even GBH and BUR, as much as they try to be whatever they try to be,
Oh, wait, man. Who did you say? GBH?
and BUR.
Hold on. GBH. We're currently working with. No, mess up.
All right. I'm saying they do a better job. They do.
They do.
The Boston Herald. I rock with Adam Gaffin of the Universal Hub. That's where I like to get my news.
Shout out to Adam.
Them, you, Spark. Like if you allow media outside of your neighborhood to tell you who your enemy is,
Oof.
you end up oppressing people for your own oppressors, and that's what we're doing by this whole timed attack from some shit that they pulled out from 17 years ago that was investigated. They got the Black and Latino community doing their work for them. They got us in our living rooms and on the phone with each other, keying and gossiping like this is just par for the course. We are criminalizing somebody who has been through due process, never been charged, never been found guilty of a crime, and already he's going to wear a scarlet letter and possibly lose this election. We're doing the work for them. We are lifting up and propping up white supremacy on their behalf because of some personal issue we have. We are going to send thousands of black boys and brown boys and black girls to jail on their behalf because we want to be short-sighted. We want to look at and after Tuesday, it's over. There ain't no November for these races. Whether DA, whether state rep, Tuesday is over. Right? People are saying leave it blank. You know who ain't gonna leave it blank? White, homogenous white communities, racist white communities ain't gonna leave it blank. Now here we are in the communities of color, like, oh, leave it blank, vote for none of the above. This ain't Brewster's Millions. You got to make a choice for you and your community.
And 2 years from now, or 6 months from now, when you're complaining why Kevin Hayden is getting away and all of our because you left it blank,
right?
Because you left it blank. Listen, we embrace this in the national level. There was Clinton and somebody else, and we talk about the lesser of two evils and whatnot. Listen, and Carlos, you talked about this years ago and whatnot.
I be trying to tell you.
Don't strategize around long game.
Now we too emotional. We're too emotional and short-sighted.
I know the appearance of what it looks like. I know the appearance of what the media, the legacy mainstream media, is trying to over-criminalize and to some extent sensationalize a horrible. Let's take Thaddeus's approach. A horrible, according to one of these women, an experience and use it as a weapon to ensure that the systemic racism that happens in Suffolk County is perpetuated. And as Carlos said, we get caught up in this sort of they figured out what the weakness was. They figured out what the weakness was, and what's the word? Not exposed. What's the word? Not took advantage. But anyway, they they took advantage of it, for lack of better words. And now, so we're sitting here with this sort of blank thing and all this other stuff, and you're going to blank your asses right into a way where our little black and brown boys are going to be getting convicted over and let's keep in mind, we got all this stuff going on with these 11 and 12-year-olds and whatnot. Like, if Kevin Hayden has his way, they're going to wind up going into the system. Now, I haven't read any particular policy on that, but if you look at it, and I got points of context with Kevin Hayden when I was a youth worker. And yes, so it's not just this race. Carlos, we got to get to it. It's 10:38, Jesus. City Council.
Yeah.
So all of these that
Wifey just sent me a text message.
Okay. Oh, Jesus. All right. So ask her, can we just have 5 more minutes? So
I ain't asking nothing. No. Hurry up. I got 4 minutes. No.
I love it. I'm so happy for you. So the demonstration, all of this sort of came to a head based on the hearing that I watched today. And City Council, the hearing was, on so many levels, there's different schools of opinions about Tanya's passion. You know, Erin got busted rolling her eyes and smirking at Julia's.
There's so many racial undertones and misogynistic undertones Frank Baker been screaming at fucking city council meetings for a goddamn year since his boy Marty from Savin Hill was the mayor, screaming, over talking the chair, doing all kinds of shit. And when he does it, he's passionate.
Listen,
but when a black woman does it, she's billed as unprofessional.
and
That's the bullshit. That's the institutionalized racism. Michael with his head down, Liz Britton with her head down, Kenzie Bach with her head down, Ed Flynn talking about, oh, you get a minute to respond. What the fuck am I supposed to say about racism in a minute?
And then
Here's what I can say about racism in a minute. Fuck racism and everybody that practices it. That's what I can say in a minute.
And that's 15 seconds. It's so.
I'll say it 4 times.
We saw the perpetuation, and what, like, my understanding is they got the blows. There was blows today. Some of the and it's so interesting because this is a black man that has somehow, and as we said before, skin don't mean kin, that is in this sort of anti-vaxxer, racist, anti-Michelle, anti-Ricardo, sort of movement, and they wound up getting physical down in there today. And I'm just some of these meetings, and here's another thing I just thought about.
Was they acting like animals,
Carlos? It was
was they lacking impulse control?
First of all, it was Domingo said fist fight. Tell him what the FI said about Monica. Hold on. What did hold on? Oh, Paula Kelly said. This is Auntie Paula of Ricardo. So this what I'm saying, Carlos. I absolutely agree. Hayden would chump for Ricardo. What'd you say about Monica? Tell me. I can't find it. Oh, look who's in the room. Our District 15, one of our District 15 candidates. Hey, Roxanne, we were just talking about you a few minutes ago. Paula, tell me what you said. I see it said, what's in those cups? So
none of your damn business.
The demonstration of what we're seeing coming to a head in this DA's race physically displayed itself today. And my concern is Ed Flynn or the powers that be going to try to use what happened today to begin to shut out the public from city council hearings? That's something we got to keep a close eye on, because there is going to be very few. Like, did they even get any resolved today? Did they even get to vote on Thaddeus's declaration of Black Joy Day next Friday?
They shut the whole shit down. But again,
never have I.
But here's the thing. Like, that is simple management skills. That's simple fucking Robert Rules 101.
Order.
If you can't maintain order in the chamber, you have police, you have security in the building, you have a color guard. Like, I've seen you throw out black and Latino. I'm not saying Eddie did this, right? Councilor Flynn. I'll show him the proper.
You said Eddie? Oh, Jesus, you went way back.
I've seen them throw out black and brown children asking for jobs. You should have cleared the chamber the third time you made the warning. If you wanted to protect your colleagues, if you wanted to protect the integrity of the chamber, if you wanted the city of Boston's voters to be able to look on the chamber as a collegial, positive group, then you should have cleared the chamber from the jump. He asked them 6, 7, 8 times. It's a lesson in boundaries. So the man lacks boundaries. You know what I'm saying? You let Frank Baker makes his comment and storms out with his little red cup. Nobody asks him what's in that red cup, and he's on office hours. But you know what I'm saying? It's a lack of management. A lot of times we elect people to elected positions, even as city council president is an elected position. Oh. Clearly today, by his colleagues, he failed his duties as protecting the body and its colleagues,
and as the president. So I will say, Paula, that this.
I'm the wrong one. I'm the wrong one to talk about Monica, because you don't know that Monica assassinated my character. She's the one that helped get me fired from City Hall because for whatever reason she did. I can't speculate on it, but
Paula, we can't.
Yeah. We too late into the game. I don't mess with that woman. I don't. I
never heard you stutter. Yes, sir.
I don't. I try to support her from the beginning. I was nothing but positive in supporting, but for whatever reason, personal demons, personal issues, personality, what she did to me, she harmed me in ways financially and in listen,
That's what I'm
I
saying.
don't even have the patience to talk about that woman. I have nothing to say about that woman. She does not exist to me. Poof.
So Paula, I needed to, because I was trying to get the reference point. And so Carlos, I know you're not looking for a quote and an apology, but I know you, and I was there.
No, listen, I'm not holding anybody else responsible for her actions. You know what I'm saying? I know clearly who she is,
This is why
what she said about me publicly. Character assassinating is
and character assassination, period.
yeah, okay. Well, then you should talk to her about trying to assassinate my character
No,
before I could talk.
she's basically saying that across the board, period. If you feel you was character assassinated, and she's talking about Monica, whatever she said is period. That's how I interpreted it.
Check the receipts. What I'm saying is, when I say that I was character assassinated, I tell people to read the transcripts of my court documents so you can make the decision of yourself. I advise people to do the same thing when it comes to people that they like, whether that be that woman that was just named or other people. Like, again, it can't just be about what you believe and how you feel about them emotionally. That does not put them above a level of scrutiny. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Pay attention to the details. You look at what is required to run a nonprofit. You look at what is required to make a withdrawal or deposit
Carlos.
from a grant. You do that. Let's all be responsible for just going past our beliefs and actually doing our due diligence. Let's not be lazy with it, because I'm past the cult of personality. I don't live there anymore. I don't.
On another subject, Carlos said, not Carlos, Domingos. And so I want to kind of touch on this today because I've been hearing some buzz around that. So what Julia said was, and what got it to a point where Ed had to call for a real recess, was she was tired of seeing selective white rage. And a black man over on the other side, sitting behind Baker, the one who was holding the phone, Sean, was yelled out, well, what about selective black rage? And so I'll be honest with you. I think that Tanya, when she got up and said what she needed to say, that put a lot of them on what do you call it? On extra defense or whatever, when she was calling out all the supremacy and all that other stuff. And so by the time Julia got to speak, it was like, and that came from one comment, and then it was so interesting, Carlos, because I literally I could hear the voices so clear. I knew who was talking. And I was like, oh my God.
Here's my wish. Here's my wish, and it's just a wish. I ain't throwing no penny in the well. And this is why, and I try to make myself available, especially to the electeds of color in the city of Boston, as someone that's been a student of it for a long time. I would like Councilor Laura, I would like Councilor Mejia, and I would like Councilor Anderson to get together, pull their voicemails, and display it for the public. And if they got to join Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, people should know that only Black and Latina women are in public leadership positions and have to walk around with security because white men are calling them and threatening their lives from January 6th to every day that they show up in City Hall, and expose the racism in the city and those that support it. And that includes everybody from Erin Murphy's sister, Dara Murphy, all the way down. And expose the cowards for who they are. Because these people, while they're virulent racists, don't even have the courage to sign their statements, show their face, or leave their name. And being from the hood I'm from, the best thing to do with a coward is confront them motherfuckers.
Hold on.
Because they fold.
And Asia said Rollins too. I wanted to just say something here, Carlos, because of what we were saying, and Paula affirms. I never thought you were guilty, just for your information, Carlos. But let's talk about character assassination sort of in general.
I dig that. And truth of the matter is, when we spoke about that, when that woman's name came up, I don't even hold her responsible. Like, I know what she did, but ultimately, I put that shit on Marty.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Which is why if I ever get the opportunity, I would love to shoot the fair one with him. Whether it's for charity or whether it's in the backyard in Dorchester. I prefer to do it for charity. We can train, you know what I'm saying, on some Logan Paul shit. We can train for 3 months, set a date. He can donate his money to Mass and Cash Recovery. I'll donate my money to the Innocence Project, and we can box it out. Because it was his decision as a second chance guy to force me out of that position after he brought me in. But we won't get into that. We won't get into that right now.
We just did. We just jumped out. We're jumping out right now because we
Yeah,
definitely
yeah.
got into it. You know, Carlos, with all of this, I will say that one of my concerns is that with the NC, the Nazi folk and whatnot, I don't know if you mentioned, but when Michelle had that briefing with Kevin, and I'll tell you the pause right here. I asked Kevin, I said, something about this is going to come to a head with this NC, Nazi, NS, whatever they are, 131 or whatever.
Patriot Front,
and
whatever.
The Patriot Front and all of them. So they shared in that meeting that Boston is prime recruitment ground because of our
course.
And so
not just the colleges, but you got, did you see Counselor Aaron Murphy or Frank Baker denounce their arrival?
No, they didn't denounce their arrival, and then we got a cop.
But they they worry about all kinds of other shit though.
We got a cop out of presumably E13 that was captured with the tattoo
with the lightning bolt on his arm. I saw it,
and it was in Forest Hill. So I'm like, somebody need to go around E13 and figure out who got that.
I mean, listen, but see, this is the shit. When I got into politics, if you know the fight that you're in, and we're talking about civil rights, a civil rights fight, and we think shit is sweet because we're in the 21st century or the and everything is good. We're not living what our grandparents lived through. It's the same fight. The FBI of all people told us a long time ago that white supremacists has infiltrated police units, firefighter units, you name it. There's not a place in society. Exactly. There's not a place in this United States society that's free from racists, bigots, whether anti-Semites, the whole nine. There's no level of strata from the custodian. Truthfully, it's a mental health issue. There's no way you can, and I'll try to close with this, right? Black people and Latinos, black people mainly, understand more than anybody else what it's like to be a second-class citizen in this country. It has an impact on our mental health. We know it. You see it how your father or mother defers or gets treated by a white person, and if you get followed around the store. We know the stories. They're well documented.
Dr. Simon said it the other day, the new behavioral health chief. He talked about it.
We know it.
Yep.
Here's what we don't talk about. The flip side of that coin is the oppressor gets fucked up by that mental health as well. If you're a white person who was born into this society, and I don't care if you consider yourself a good white person, a non-racist white person, to get there, you had to confront the biases and inherent biases that you were born, taught, and showed in every strata of society. And most people don't do that confrontation with themselves. There ain't enough therapists in the world to heal all the white people from the inherent bias that they ain't even aware that they're suffering from. They just think that's just the way it's supposed to be. So why would they change it? Why would they fix it? There's a small percentage that, shout out to them, have confronted it in their lives, confronted their family, trying to be better people in general. But the majority don't even know they're suffering from the same converse mental health effects of being oppressors. You become a sociopath. Your children are sociopaths. Your grandchildren are sociopaths. You took your children to cookouts and put out a blanket and fruit while they hung black people and burned them. You think you heal from that because you elected Barack Obama? Get the fuck out of here. That's not how it works. That's not how it works.
Just like the trauma lives in our DNA, the nastiness and the hate, it
lives in their DNA. Absolutely.
Unless, because I am very, very sensitive to some.
Unless you do the work. Unless you do the work. That's what I said. Unless you confront it and do the work.
Or if your parents did and you were not raised.
That's what I'm saying. Somebody has to interrupt it, but that's not the norm in our society. Not in movies, not in work, whether you work in retail, government, private sector, financial. I don't give a fuck what part of society. That's just, and now it's global. I don't. That's the fact of the matter. I'm wearing my BLK shirt by D. Lachey. Shout out to D. Lachey. I'm still supporting black businesses because that's the only way we're gonna get to equity is by supporting our own. I hope everybody votes on September 6th.
Hold on. Before you close out, this is the Java with Jimmy Black shirt special.
Because usually you know what I say. Usually you're wearing your gang colors.
I'm not gonna mess with you, but we got Java with Jimmy, just black, plain black T-shirts available too. And so Carlos, this for no other reason, and we wound up. You said 90 minutes, and we wound up doing 3 hours.
I gotta go give a foot massage and a back massage now to pay for this. Thank you very much.
Oh, I'm so happy for you. I'm hating. I'm so happy for you.
But you want to rub on some feet too? Listen,
I want my feet rubbed on.
Make some calls. Make some calls.
There's COVID and Quincy
monkeypox. What you gotta get? Monkeypox.
Let me tell you what my mother did.
My cup is empty. Let me chill. My
mother probably in bed now, but I went.
If your mother was on, you would have been checked already.
Oh, she was on. She was on in the beginning. I hope she'll probably text me. So I went to Providence for a few weeks when monkeypox first came out. They wasn't talking vaccination and all that. So I'm telling my mother I'm away and whatnot. And she's familiar with monkeypox. Do you know she texts me talk about no monkey business while you're away?
No monkey business. That's some old school.
I said, "Ma,
shit."
No, but the whole correlate because large.
You were a whole half a century years old. You didn't like that. You don't like your age.
See, you're so pure of heart and so open and secure in who you are. She was making a reference between monkey business and monkeypox.
I got it, but I'm just saying that's some old school stuff to say. But she's still telling her half a century year old son no monkey business.
I said, "Ma, you can't say that to a gay black male." That She's like, well, "I just said it to you." I said, "Well, you can't say it to me." Shoot. But anyway, I don't know how we got all the way on there, but it is important that we pay attention to what's going on. The system is currently in the process. It's not, I've been saying this for months. Boston Poly is changed. No.
I'm just finishing it up. I don't want to leave any here.
Hold on.
Listen. Your boy's on the left. My mama ain't watching. You can't. Yeah, exactly. No, I don't get. I get.
Definitely got to end this with some black joy. You'll get the benefits of the foot and back massage. You know what? Don't y'all start. This is
a woman would say that. What benefits do I get? James is seasoned. Let's get these comments up so we can close out on a happy note. Just because even though this process is ugly to most people, conflict is necessary. We have to do it.
Listen, if you have not met Auntie Paula, Carlos,
hatred is a mental health. I think it's a mental health function. Like you have to hate people in your mind. I get it. I think we're saying the same thing, Paula. I'm not disagreeing with Paula at all right here. Like you do have to hate them with your mind. It's not an excuse. Like that bias lives in their head. They have to believe the same way men have to believe that women are supposed to answer to them, right? That's they're messed up in their mind. It's a belief system that they think that they're superior to women, that women have to serve men. That belief system allows them to perpetrate violence. The same way certain white people believe that black people and Latinos are beneath them, so it allows them to perpetrate violence. It allows them to ignore their humanity. It's the same thing. That's how I equate it. Oh shit!
So Carlos, so what you better do right now is go upstairs, turn off the lights, light a candle.
Turn off the lights.
And then Asia said, when you give love,
light a candle.
You'll get love, sir.
You don't know my relationship. You don't know my relationship, Asia. You don't know.
You tell wifey.
You don't know about what kind of levels of reciprocity are going on in this house. Nah, it is true. Asia is right.
Look at you.
I yield.
You smiling, Carlos.
It makes me smile. I'm in love. It makes me smile, and I don't have no shame in the game. It makes me smile.
I'm so happy for you.
I'm free. I'm getting more free by the day. I'm learning how to be free. I'm learning how to be myself. I'm learning how to not worry about people's opinion of me. I'm learning how to not feel like I have to perform for people's affirmation and it's a beautiful feeling.
It
And
is.
I did that through therapy, through looking at myself, through trying to learn why I did the things that I did in the past. You know,
Work.
I put in the work. I put in the work.
And you deserve it. So, as somebody said, when you give love, you get love, sir. And we applied that when you love yourself. Oh, you did it? Y'all did it?
This is my engagement ring. We break all kinds of rules. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, you got an engagement. Look, we're breaking norms and coming away from only the man.
That's how we do. You know, black titanium on that ass.
Carlos, I'm so happy for you, bro. This is why you're able. Part of the reason why you're able to walk in such freedom in the authenticity. I'll say this to you. We'll go from here.
Don't get it twisted. It's still tough. I still struggle with it. It's still a daily struggle.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And for me, is because you know my path, and I've there have been some interesting things these past couple of years, and I've not handled them perfectly, but a lot better. So I know what of late too. So I know what the struggle is. So
we've been live for 2 hours and 54 minutes.
No, we started at because we started a few minutes late because I was trying to get some graphics done.
This is longer than the city council meeting lasted today.
Oh, you choosing violence to end out with. Carlos, white folks have the benefit of the internet. She's so crazy. Of the internet to look up ish, to unlearn reasons to hate folks of color, so that no ethics. Paula is.
I ain't giving them no excuse. I like the energy, Paula. I like the energy.
Yeah.
But they can't heal if they're not even aware of it. They can't start to heal if they don't know. And therapy does work. Absolutely. It might not work the first time. It might not work with that therapist. But when you find the right therapist, when you put in the work and practice it like you would if you was working out at the gym, it absolutely works.
Listen, I want to make sure you still work, and if I have to bother you again, I don't want a wifey to say, with Jimmy, last time you was on with Jimmy so I'm going, it's 11 o'clock on the dot. Brother, I appreciate you. I'll let you know.
I appreciate the platform, brother. I appreciate you creating this platform, sticking with it so that community does not have to listen to people who are not rooted in community, don't care about our community, never did. We should not be getting our leadership, our opinions from them. I know as an elected official from the past, it was nice to get an endorsement from these motherfuckers, but I've matured past that. They should not get to choose our leadership. Their opinion doesn't mean shit.
It is what it is. And so, bro, I appreciate you. I was talking to Carlos today about figuring out a way to do this again. I want to be able to compensate him. Because it took, I didn't say what you're worth. I said compensate, give a donation. We'll pass around the offering plate.
The doors to the church are open. Come on down to the altar, pass the plate around. We like when it jingles. We would like it better when it folds. I'm just saying, brother.
Heidi, pray for this. Oh, I got a text tonight from one of the pastors that said, here's a text, because I said I got a text. They said, here's a text for you. Hold on. Oh shit.
I tell them about the book of Los. I got Proverbs for them.
Here's a text, not from a city worker, from a preacher who appreciates truth when it's spoken. And so it really up. Somebody said throw that Cash App up, Carlos. Folks want to donate. Put your Cash App in the private chat.
Nah, I don't roll like that. I appreciate the sentiment, but I don't roll like that. My motivation has never been financial. It's always been about my people. It's always been about educating, sharing my truth, sharing my journey so that other people can find the light on their path. So I appreciate that, but I'm a respectfully decline. And I'm gonna respectfully get off this list. You hear that phone ringing in the background.
Don't forget I have your PayPal. So with that being said,
now, I'm never against a financial conduit if they want to send it to you and you want to pay me for a service.
And I have a service, and I have a service fee.
That's different.
I take my 10%.
See, that's how it starts. Usury. I believe the Bible speaks about usury.
The Bible says, "Bring your tithes and offering to." So get off of here and go be with wifey.
I'm about to flip these tables over.
Bro, I love and appreciate you. Thank you for your vulnerability tonight, your transparency, along with the knowledge and mobilization. But thank you for willing to be transparent and honest about some subjects that this conversation brought up. I appreciate you, man.
Appreciate you too, man.
All right. Thank you, brother.
Have a good night, everybody.
Pay some bills. All right, Carlos. Oh my God. 3 hours. I don't think I've done a 3-hour session in a long time. And I am going to, did I eat? Oh no, I got a hamburger. I'm tired. I got a hamburger in the kitchen. I was really sitting up here like, did I eat? I ate the French fries. I got a hamburger in the refrigerator. All in all, this is really to people like Carlos and I. We get the calls. We've been in this. I was in the hall. I understand, somebody made some comment or whatever. Carlos is definitely much more experienced and astute in this place. He's a part of my tutelage in this. And so I don't mind submitting and bowing to that knowledge base with the area of sort of the after dark, because there is a lot of frustration in our community around Boston Poly, around what's going on with Mass and Cass, around what's going on with the DA's race, around racism and all this other stuff. And so hopefully this was an outlet, one, to hear some things, and two, to just get some information and a perspective that will make you think different. That when you hear some information from mainstream media, or if you hear an elected talk, it's like now it's filtered through the conversation I heard with Jimmy and Carlos the other night. Like, are they bullshitting me? Or is this something that I can point to that they have action in the past around what they're saying? Or if they introduce something, we're not 5 years down the line and then nothing's happened. So anyway, I'm getting off of here. Kenya, please. She said, I got to watch the first 2 hours later. I cannot believe we've been here for 3 hours. Lord have mercy. I'm getting off of here. Go eat this cold hamburger. And tomorrow morning, don't forget, we are going to be with candidate Ricardo Arroyo to talk about some of the things we talked about tonight, but also just to check in with him and hear directly from him, his perspective around what's going on, how he's being handled, and things like that. So we will see him tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. And then don't forget, tomorrow night at 6 p.m. you can still go. Oh, where is the Lord Jesus? I thought I had the oh, here it goes. So there, I haven't checked the app. Hold on for 1 second. I can't check it now because I have the wrong phone. So there were about 9 seats left before Carlos and I got on. We're continuing a conversation around all that we're dealing with. How do you focus on your health? How do you go to routine and preventive healthcare appointments? How do you go to health screenings? How do you handle your mental health? And so we're doing that tomorrow at 6 p.m. You must register in order to attend this event. And so you can go register. This is lowercase. It is case sensitive. jwj.info/YHJ9122. And come meet me at Dudley Cafe tomorrow at 6 p.m. Register. Don't come talking about I'm not at the door. And so talk about go get Jimmy. Nope. Register. If you haven't registered, don't come. All right. That's it for me. I'm tired. We'll see you guys at 9. James, you're pretty well versed in politics too, but you don't put it out there as directly as Carlos. You have your reasons, and I get it, but you drop gems when needed. And so I love, you have to know Paula to really appreciate when reading her words, and I can hear her saying things that I also understand some of the context of the reasons why. Yes, I've gotten a lot better because Carlos is refined with it. I used to be on the live talk about Marty. What the are you thinking? And ask that 3 times. So thank God for growth. I'm tired. Y'all have a wonderful day. We'll see. Oh shoot. I almost messed up. We'll see y'all tomorrow at 9 a.m. with candidate for DA, Ricardo Arroyo. All right. Have a good day, everybody. Peace. Have a good